So it is now 9:03. Let's call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, as far as the agenda goes, there's only one change that I know about, and that was the food and beverage was actually done yesterday to facilitate Ralph's schedule. So that's taken care of, and that nothing will happen there today. Other than that, the agenda is as presented. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So made.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any nays? Okay. Agenda is approved. So welcome, everybody. So we're here today through Friday. We have a full packed agenda going forward here. People are in multiple places. For the most part, the B&F team is here. Brian is remote. The admin team will be working from the admin building, either the boardroom or John's office or wherever. So I think this should work, I think, just fine. I think we're all set up to facilitate good communication here. Anybody who is not speaking should have their mic muted. If in fact you have a question or you want to make a comment, there's a feature on the bar here with a little hand. You click on the hand, raises a flag, and I'll acknowledge that person to speak. And that person will then turn his mic on, and everybody else will have their mic muted so we don't have feedback. I think, does everybody have their speakers on right now? Because I'm not hearing any bad reverberation or anything. So if our speakers are on and they're low, I think it's working okay at our end here. The full, Jeff is not here to join us. Jeff may step in and join us at some point in time during the meetings, depending on how he feels. So the meeting is open to obviously all the B&F team. The meeting is open to board members who are participating to join in as a contributing member, as well as the admin team. Those in the public, we will offer an opportunity for those in the public to step in and contribute with comments or questions. We would hold that off to the end of each section. So when each department presents their section, and we're done with that, we'll open it up for the public for any comments or questions. Maybe some of your questions might get answered as we go through the details here. B&F's role here. So the whole budget process is worth stating as we kick this thing off here. John's team, general manager, puts together and then presents a budget, which we all have and we've all reviewed. And we're going to review in much more detail in the next 3 days. So during this time period, B&F has an opportunity to interject comments, concerns, questions, and make recommendations. Our role here is to make recommendations and present those recommendations to the board, or present any concerns that we have to the board. The board has the final authority to obviously bless and accept the budget. At the end of the day, it's B&F's job. It's just to advise and make recommendations. I want to thank all of John's departments for all the hard work they did in putting together the budget, and for joining us and presenting it at the department level. It's great that we have a lot of people in John's team who are responsible for this, who have to make it happen, are the ones that are presented B&F. We like that, and that's a good thing. Special thanks goes to Steve. A lot of work to put together these budgets and get it to us on December 18th. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate that. Special thanks to the IT folks, to Dave and Howard for doing a test run with us, Josh as well, going through the test run, getting us all set up and working through any kind of issues so we hit the ground running today, and we did. We hit the ground running today, so appreciate it very much. Michelle Thank you so much for food prep. Looks wonderful. And of course, Debbie Donahue, thanks for setting up the room. It's actually perfect. So for today's meeting, Brian and the rest of the week here, Brian will be taking minutes. Appreciate that. Thank you, Brian. And if we had draft minutes, Brian, that, you know, the following day that we could take a look at, it's good to take a refresh as to what we agreed upon or any hanging issues from the day before. At the end of the week, we'll have a more detailed, full review of everything, but it's good to just take a look as we go along to make sure we're not overlooking something.
Okay,
So with
understood.
that's my only comments. At that point, I'll turn it over to John. I'm sure he has some opening comments that he wants to make before we get into the first session, which will be the fire department, which starts at 10 o'clock. John, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Dick. Good morning, everybody. The opening remarks today will be a little different than last year. I mean, this is kind of a unique year. It is a unique year. It's the first year with the budget during a pandemic, and I'm sure that goes for everybody. With that said, and everybody has heard me say it at board meetings, it's in the papers, certainly this BNF team has heard it. I mean, there's no playbook for this, what we are dealing with, but we certainly have put something together, and it's been a total team effort. We definitely, more so than other years, have more challenges. Obviously, the challenge of the pandemic, the more uncertainty than in other years. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of variables that we looked at for this budget. There are options that we have. And basically what I've tried to do, what we've had the team do, is lay everything out for everybody. Everything is spelled out. And this way we can address it. We can continue to get the guidance. We've gotten guidance over the last 7 months from BNF, which helped me and helped everybody else put this together. So there's not going to be any surprises here. There's certainly options to be taken. And I believe over this week, we will do that. We'll certainly address everything. I know, Dick, your team will. They've been doing terrific. And then we'll be ready for the board. And obviously, then it's the board. We'll review it. So with that said, and before we start to get into line by line detail and all the different departments and all that, and I will have the department heads here, as well as their number twos. I've asked them to get their number twos involved, even with the presentations, as much as they're comfortable. And I'm sure you will see that. I mean, having the number twos along with the number ones just makes us overall, as an association, as a team, stronger. I've certainly seen that. Again, what we have given to Budget and Finance and what's on the website is a working document, more so than in the past. And I think everybody's looked at it that way and they understand. And where we are today and where we're going to finish off in the 7 weeks, and I do need these 7 weeks to unfold, and we all do, to see, one, what's going on with the pandemic. Certainly the pandemic today is different, at least in my mind, different than where we were when we first started this budget, in the sense that now we have a vaccine, right? So a lot of different things happening there. The other thing I'm looking forward with these 7 weeks is so that we can get another month or two of actuals under our belt and see where we are with the favorability or our difference to budget, which I'm going to jump into now high level. Okay, so with that, that's a good place to start, because obviously, as I mentioned with options, I think more so than any other year, and even last year, hopefully the favorability that we're looking at today, and again, another reason why I'd like to try to get another month on our belts of actual and see where we are with the pandemic, there's certainly options with this. So let's talk high level. The last presentation that I did from the controller's report prepared by Steve and the team, we had a favorability number, I believe it was November actual, that I presented was 1.243 million. Favorability. But then I have, what, 5 more months? And we know that those 5 months that we have a usage of cash, and we do not bring in favorability. So let's take that 1.243. The estimate that we came up with from discussions with the team, doing a forecast, right? And we've presented that before. We are estimating at this point that the favorability come April 30th, and again, this is not in concrete, but we estimate today, and everybody has seen this number and heard it from me, is 650,000, right? So that's an important number, 650,000. But let's just do a quick reconciliation for this year and look at this. If I subtract from that favorability the 1.143 million that we received from the PPP loan, right? And we still have to see where we are on that as far as forgiveness. If I subtract from that 650, and now we know the number is actually 271,000 after Ralph spoke yesterday, but I've been estimating 275,000, just round numbers for this, 275,000 on the PPP money that food and beverage received, right? And you all know that that's embedded in their numbers, as opposed to our 1.143, which affects all the payroll of all departments. We have that in general admin. Not consistent, but we agreed on that from the beginning. And as long as I spell it out and remind everybody, I think we're fine. And then I subtract from that favorability of 650, approximately 125,000 for the Affordable Care Act that Julia's and everybody else, Josh, everybody's doing a good job on there. And I take that from the 650. Well, then I'm somewhere in the loss range for this year of 900,000. That's without the PPP money. Just to give everybody a perspective of what happened with the pandemic, okay? Now, put that number to the side and forget about that for now and go back to the $650,000 favorability, which is what we're estimating at the end of this year. Last year, when we did the budget, we did not, in the 986, there was no money in there to offset the operating deficit, which are mandated to offset with each budget, right? The board gave us X amount of years and we followed it. The boards, we've all followed it. Last year, we took a piece. So the point I'm making here is in the 986 last year, the assessment, there was no money in there because we used the favorability from the last year. We were comfortable with that and we were correct. We did wind up the year with the favorability. So this year, doing this budget, I think we have, Steve, how much we have left in the operating deficit? Around 186,000? 168. All right, so I got a transposition. So, but again, with me, with this, I use an estimate of 200,000. So what I'm saying is, in this budget assessment, I did not put money in there to offset the remaining piece of the operating deficit. I believe, and Steve and I are comfortable with, and we've vetted this with BNF, we're comfortable that we'll have the favorability to offset that. All right, so that's the first piece, and it's a big piece right off the bat. Let's take care of before we go forward. So that's where I am on that. I got one more piece before we get into other stuff, but anybody have any questions on that? Because that, I know it's a lot. I vetted it before with everybody, but that's important. They're big numbers. That 650 may come into play again, the favorability, right? And I'm offsetting the 168, whatever the operating deficit, which would bring us to an operating deficit of 0. And I didn't put money in the assessment for that. So whatever 168 divided by the number is, that's got to be around, I don't know, $15, $20 that we would have put aside that I didn't have to because of the favorability. Anybody have any questions on that before I get into the next piece? Because that's important. Okay, great. Next piece I want to just talk about is when Dick went in front of the board, he asked for an analysis of budget to budget. You did it, right? So he wanted budget, and I assumed the whole team wanted that. Normally, I don't think we need something like that, but I believe BNF and Dick was right this year. Steve certainly did the analysis for them, for all of you. And the reason I think it's more important this year than any other year, where I normally would say, hey, we're going with the forecast, and you can see the forecast is a key part of this. Just based upon everything I just talked about for the last 5-10 minutes, has to do with the forecast. But if for what I want to do high level right now, if you look at budget to budget last year, they're pretty consistent. You'll see that as we go through the different departments. There's a few departments that have some increases. They're not big, but there are 1 or 2 departments that there is a big difference that I'm going to talk about next, because that's where you're going to see where I'm going to try to pull out from the line by line detail, which we will go through these 3 days. And you saw we did this yesterday, and every department head will do it. But I just want to pull certain items out, the key items, to let you all see and let everybody else see the effect on the assessment And this way you can hone in on it and see, where you can give guidance, where we can maybe take some of those options that I'm talking about, and other measures maybe. And you also get a clear idea of, what's truly affecting the assessment. So over these 3 days, including yesterday, you're going to get all the detail you need, but you're getting a high level, which I'm going to give you now. Okay, let's do it. So it's kind of a high level reconciliation. I did do this in the last board meeting. I was just looking in paper. Certainly one of our local papers has it all covered, and I think they did a good job on it. So what happened this year? Where is our increase, right? From that 986, just high level. Well, our medical has gone up. And the estimates I've received and Steve's received talking with the providers is they're estimating a 30% increase. 30%, right? So if you take that and you just put it into numbers, and the medical along with the salaries are embedded in all the different departments. But this is such a big effect that I need to pull it out and have you all understand it before, and everybody else on here, before we get into the budget detail. So if I take that medical and I just said, okay, what would be the effect on the budget, on the assessment just for that? Well, that's $30, right? So that's, if I just took the 986 last year as a base, just what I need today for the medical, $30. $30 per household. Salaries, well, I did, and again, to be discussed, but I did put in there, we put in there a 3% merit raise. We don't do COLAs. That was made clear to me last year by the board, and I agree with it. Merit raise, 3%. Now keep in mind that 3% also covers minimum wage, which we do have a lot of, and that's statutory. Steve, the minimum wage is going up, what, 75 cents? Yeah, 11.75. All right, so I don't know if you heard Steve. So it's going to 11.75. So embedded in this number for salaries is a statutory number that it's statutory, right? So what we're estimating for salaries, an increase of 3% and obviously covering the minimum wage adjustment, is about $110,000 in that ballpark, which is a $13 increase to the assessment. Okay. Liability insurance. I'm being told the liability insurance is going up. So 10% or 60,000, if you heard Steve, $60,000. Well, just do some quick, easy, rounded math. And again, this is rounded stuff. It's not, doesn't need to be exact. That's $7 on the assessment compared to last year. So if you add those three numbers up, if my math's correct, it's $50 just for that. So that's peeled out a big piece of something that was not in there last year, all right? And obviously has to be looked at. Then I mentioned that basically, and you'll see with the budget to budget, which Steve did, which was a recommendation from you all. If you look at aquatics and beach parking, and like everything else with the pandemic, obviously the pandemic has affected that. We all know that. I don't have to explain why. But the feeling is from the team, from the department heads, is that it'll be slower, even if everything's solved, because this budget, let me point this out because I didn't yesterday, this budget binder is prepared without COVID adjustment, right? And we touched on that yesterday. Doug asked, and I'll talk about the COVID adjustment as soon as I get through this reconciliation. But the COVID adjustment is not part of this budget work papers that I'm giving you. We did do it. There is a spreadsheet, as we found out yesterday. It's on page 15, Steve, which is more a mechanical calculation, which takes us from this budget prepared without COVID, right? So if everything's good in the world. But then we say, okay, based upon the history of this year, and remember, there was a reason why earlier I showed you that without any PPP money or anything, we probably would have lost 900,000 to $1 million. So we calculated an adjustment for that. And I'll touch on that as soon as I finish these couple more numbers. But again, that is not included in the department head presentations or this binder. It's a separate spreadsheet, which will take whatever we calculated here And we'll subtract that from our forecasted or estimated amounts for this year. And the difference is what we put for a COVID adjustment. And I'll talk about that in 2 more minutes. Let me just go through this. All right, so aquatics and beach park, a little different than golf. Golf, I heard on Saturday, I went down there for a golf update last night. I was told we had 110 people there on Saturday, which is tremendous. So in some respects, we're the pandemic's not affecting us for whatever reasons and other reasons, but aquatics is saying that, and probably, and that's for us all to decide, that maybe the people aren't going to come back on day one. And that's possible, even if everything's solved, that's possible. So the budget, you'll see that when it's presented, was kicked up. And last year, I think the overall budget was, what, 110,000 unfavorable. And I think it was kicked up to, what, 240, 260? Somewhere around 240 this year, so unfavorable. So that's an effect of $17 on the assessment compared to last year, right? I mean, nobody has a crystal ball. So, and there still will be a COVID adjustment when I talk about aquatics and beach parking and golf and everything else, and we'll do that separate. I'm just going to ask Steve if we could just, what's on page 15, we'll look at that schedule. We might as well do it now. The beach parking, again, was ratcheted up. Well, actually, that one, which we make money on, I guess we took the favorability down 130,000. So that's a $15 assessment hit when you compare budget to budget. So the 17 and the 15, because these were really the main two, or the only departments where in a non-COVID situation, they felt that it would have an effect, people wouldn't come on day one. So that's $32. So right now I'm at $82 in an equal world. The bulkheads last year, we put it back the year before in the assessment. We didn't have bulkheads. We put it in at $19. The feedback I received, and a lot of it, was that the $19 last year was not enough and we needed to ratchet it up this year. And we did, and we ratcheted to $40. Now these are the bulkheads, the non-homeowner bulkheads. This is the general area bulkheads. So if you go to $40, because last year they were talking like we should be somewhere in 30, 35. So we put it 40. Again, this is something that definitely I believe is going to be scrutinized, and it should be, and we should discuss this. And I think we do it with bulkheads. I was just talking to Nobi Violante this morning, and that's tomorrow. When we talk about the bulkheads for the homeowners, we can hone in on this number, because this number certainly should be looked at. But that's $21. And you come to drainage. We had drainage as a top priority, right? We made it this year, the Bainbridge project, across the board. Everybody on the board, here or anywhere, is saying the drainage. So with the drainage, we reallocated money to the Bainbridge from our drainage account this year, which is the right thing to do, and I would do it every day. But then my balance in drainage this year, we had estimated to do just normally without the Bainbridge around $500,000 worth of work. We did have favorability somewhere else that we're going to reallocate to do that drainage, which is needed. With that said, and with all we're doing, which is the right thing, in last year's budget assessment, the 986, we did not have a number in there to increase our drainage account because we had a balance. We had 500,000. We believed that's what we would spend, and so we didn't have an increase in there. Now, if we do all the planned work from now to the end of the year, plus the Bainbridge, the drainage account will be zero, right? The balance sheet, the reserve would be zero. So in order to do the normal $300,000 to $500,000 worth of work that we want to do on drainage, I need a number for that in the assessment to put money in there. And that number, I got like a number here, we're estimating like 300, if I'm reading my own writing, around 370,000. That's $44 on the assessment because we didn't have it in the last year. And we didn't have it in the we didn't need a number in the assessment last year because for several years, I don't know exactly, we didn't do much work on drainage. So the money had built up. But now, when you have a starting point that you're comparing to that doesn't have a piece in there, and you put it in now, that's an increase to that number, unless I have an offset somewhere else. And we haven't spoken about that kind of stuff yet, all right? Which is a good segue into the next number, depreciation. Depreciation usually goes up, and it's a big number. Steve did exactly what, and others looked at our DMA study, and we said we would look at it at a high level now, and we did with all the other changes and everything, and they came up with a calculation that's favorable to budget compared to last year, which calculated to $11. So now you could put a bracket on the 11 to subtract against those other numbers that I gave you. And I see everybody writing it down, so I know this is good stuff. All right, so that was a good one. The police, when they did their budget, there's favorability there, and you can put another favorability or a bracket in this calculation of $13. So there's a couple positions. Steve and I actually met with Chief last night again, and we have favorability there because some positions will not be filled. They're not being eliminated. There's just odds are they're not going to be filled, and we think that that's what's going to happen right now. So we have that built in. Everybody's comfortable with it. There's more reasons. I'll leave that to the chief when he comes in to talk with you. All right, in general maintenance, there are positions, there's some favorability there. It's $9. Did I mention the police? It was 13. So you got a 13 and you have a 9 for favorability of 22. To go against those other numbers that I gave you. Again, this is a working document. I'm not saying this is the assessment. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of variables. For instance, yesterday we heard Ralph say that he believed that when everything opens up in April, May, that they're going to come and everything's going to be great. So there's an assumption. And if we take that assumption with everything else, there'd be favorability against this number. But that's to be discussed over the next couple of days. And I want to take advantage of every possible week over the next 7 for all of us to see what unwinds. Okay? All right. So let's just get back to last. Any questions on that before I get into the COVID one adjustment? I'm sure you all added it up. I'm sure you all came to the calculation that showed what? No assessment increase.
Excuse me, John, what was the number for depreciation, please?
Yeah, it's a positive $11 on the assessment.
11. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And what was the number for beach parking?
So the beach parking was the 15. And again, something for us to discuss over the next several days, everybody to discuss, right? A lot of assumptions. All right, so look, it's a working document. I'm trying not to say whatever that number is, that's the assessment, because I truly believe that that's not the number, nor will it be the number when we take all the other pieces and as things unwind over the next couple of weeks. All right, and whether we could do reallocations or whatever, that forecasted favorability number is big in my mind. But again, keep in mind that it won't be a final number. But right now, I am real comfortable. Steve's very comfortable, and we've said this before, that we did not include anything in this assessment working document to offset that operating deficit, which we're mandated to do. And again, the board can change that. I can't do that. Or they can say, hey, we don't want to do that now. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying there's a lot of options, and it all unwind for us. Okay? Let's talk about the COVID. Anybody else have any questions on that before I go to the last piece? COVID was on what page, 15, Steve?
Yeah, summary's on 15.
Just bear with me and I get to page 15. All right, so you all have your budget binders. You heard Steve say page 15. So if you all turn there, please. This is good. This will all tie everything together. You're going to get the detail, you line by line, right? We talked about that yesterday. Department heads in here. Okay, so now I just gave you everything, and I said that this budget was prepared, and the instructions I gave everybody was prepare it without COVID. Okay. So then obviously we need a number for COVID, because especially when we started 2 months ago. Yeah. So what we did was we took the budget that I kind of gave you a high level that's in this binder. And Steve, we compared it to the forecast of this year for each department. And then Steve did a calculation to subtract it and come out with the difference. Because we said, hey, if COVID is the same as this year, again, no playbook, right? But we'll use the history of this year, and we're forecasting that number. What do you think it would be next year, especially if we don't have any PPP money? So that number is $77. You have the detail there, and I'll just talk it out because I know there's other people on here. I'm not sure how many, but to be clear on it. And interesting, you talk about bottoms up, sideways, whatever. Just one example was Aquatics. So we did this, and then when Kobe and Kathleen did Aquatics, and they gave us their COVID adjustment, sure enough, it equaled the same number. So we did it high level mechanically, but then we kind of went back also. But there is no binder, with COVID P&Ls all over the place, nor does that make sense to do that. There's no way I can do that. But we do have an estimate, assumptions. And that assumption comes out to $77. And you see the sheep there, but I'll just talk about it. The yacht club would probably be a $19 unfavorable. Aquatics, another $21 unfavorable. Beach parking, unfavorable $22. Beach club, unfavorable $6. Golf, unfavorable $12. Recreation, positive $2, which would give you a $77 assessment number. But I don't believe that at this point we need. But we need to discuss it. It needs to be talked about. If, I don't want to say if we, pull another rabbit out of the hat, but that's where we are. Okay. But I want to make a point of it. The COVID is not in here outside of beach parking and Aquatics saying, hey, look, maybe they're not going to come on the first day. That's an assumption. It's not a bad assumption. We found out yesterday from food and beverage that they're looking at it differently. So obviously it's something that we still need to discuss over the week. And that's why we have this week. Any questions? I mean, that was a lot. That basically tied everything together. Obviously, if we have the favorability and this board and everybody else is comfortable, maybe we look at that. Maybe we put off some maintenance or something. Maybe we reallocate from whether it's roads or somewhere else to drainage. These are all options. And remember what I said, we have a lot of options to look at. Well, when you do that, obviously the numbers that you're all calculating is going to come down, right? It's going to come down. So somewhere is our number. To me, I have a rationale what's prudent, and that'll unwind over the next couple of days. And that's for all of you to determine also before we go to the board, who obviously will then, tell us or tell me what I can and can't do. But we do have options. So I don't want to just sit here and say, this is going up, this is going up, which it is. There are other options. And again, I'm just repeating, we need the next 7 weeks to unwind, or at least a good part of it. And we got to make some decisions, which I have no problem doing if left up to me. None. So I just want to make that clear. All right, any questions? It's a lot. Everybody got it? Have it? Yeah, George, put the mic off. George.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Make sense? Did I miss
Yeah,
any?
no, I'm good.
Tom Piatti. Anybody else? Doug. I got thumbs up. All right, so obviously, all right. All right, so with that said.
I think Don has a question.
Oh, Don, I'm sorry, Don. Got to take his mic off, Dick.
You got to click your.
Top right. Dick, is Mike, I can't hear him. Dick, top right corner near the red button. Oh, I just saw that 700,000. I thought that was the mark. I would have got up and went home. Oh, I gotta take my mic off. One so far. The other one is too close to call. You believe it?
There we go.
Hey, John, this question was, can you explain the 30% increase in the medical, what the categories were?
Sure. You want to do it? Yeah, so I'm gonna, Steve is not only our controller, he wears many hats, and Steve's working on this, and he's prepared. Let me get him in the picture here. You all see him?
See me?
All right, I'm gonna put my mask on and pull away.
So I think the question was the 30% increase.
What categories are going up? Drugs, hospitalization, doctors?
It's the medical insurance. It's the medical insurance piece. So it's all in with with that. We're using United Healthcare. We priced it out this year to get a better rate. Switched over from Care First. It's basically the experience that drives the price increase year over year. Of course, we're going to go through and do what we can, to try to sharpen the pencils of the vendors that are out, or the carriers that are out there. And there's some different options that are brokers working with us with. But right now, from a conservative standpoint, they're telling us, we need to put that in there because it's a real possibility it could be that high.
Steve, when does that get firmed up?
Yeah, so it's fiscal year based plan document that we have. So we can't put it out to bid until about 2 months prior to the end of the plan year. So we wouldn't be able to firm it up, unfortunately, until after we need budget finalized. So we usually get the preliminary bids in the end of February, and then we go back and try to negotiate. So it's really a negotiation through early March.
Do the employees pay anything for their coverage?
Yeah, we changed that over a couple of years ago where they pay, it's an 80-20 split approximately. Yes.
This is George. Maybe I can add a little bit to that. On the medical, and I don't have a lot of detailed information, but I do know the last 2 years we've had some pretty hefty claims against us. And what insurance companies will do, they'll probably take the last 3 years of claim history. And what I mean by that is the dollar amount spent for medical claims on our employees. We're not that big of an organization that they have a lot of employees to spread that cost over to. So with the 30% going up, I'm really not surprised. In general, medical is going up void of our claims, and then you add our claims history to it, it does impact us. And maybe that helps a little bit on the explanation.
And let me just add one thing so everybody understands. And George is right. We're looking at another 2 years of increase because of our history. So this is just the first year of a big increase.
And one thing you don't want to go to a self-insured program at our size. And when we have 90, 94 full-time employees, we're not going to sustain ourselves in that. That would be, in my opinion, a disaster. So anybody that looks at us is going to look at our claims history. And I know we've had one large one. I think last year we had 2, if I remember right. And again, I don't have any detail on it. I just know that we've had them, and that does impact us.
I have one more question on insurance. Is there liability similar to the health? In other words, do we have some large claims that the liability insurance is going up 10% or whatever the number is?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have some, but the market's really driving it with property insurance specifically. Larry might be able to, add on a little bit here, but I've been in contact with our broker who, says that actually, COVID's kind of stolen the news, but the hurricane season was pretty active, during the hurricane season down south, and it's driving a lot of the rates there. But we do have some claims that we're dealing with as well.
And let me just add that this, the listing of this as liability increases is not correct. It's property and casualty. So the biggest driver in this is the property portion of this. Our casualty claims, our liability claims are not out of whack, but property insurance for everyone is going up. The big exposure for us is not necessarily the hurricanes themselves, but we are in a class 1 windstorm area. So the premiums for covering our buildings on the beach and over here because of wind are going up. So that's, I mean, it's really not just liability, it's property and casualty. And so, I mean, the market all over is going up. It's
How
unfortunate.
about workers' comp? Is that an issue or not an issue?
Workers, I think workers' comp is going up, but not like the health insurance or property and casualty.
Okay, thanks.
So does every property fall into that class 1, or just the ones that are like on the beach?
All of us, even our homes fall into that. It goes back about another 5 miles from here that this whole area is considered a class 1 windstorm area.
So just to add on that workers' comp, we've done very good this year. As Larry knows, it's, there's a 2 to 3 year lag on that experience as well. So we had some big claims last year, not this year. We've been managing the safety committee and working with a lot of the departments. So, I'm definitely proud of the way people are responding to things around here this year.
And again, I hope everyone understands we can't get real granular with this because it deals with personnel issues on a lot of these issues.
So if I could just kind of echo George's comments about you don't want to self-insure. You absolutely don't. That's for sure. But there is an opportunity to, as an organization, look at the deductibles for the employees. Where the employees might have, I don't know what it is, a $250 or $500 deductible for their own family or themselves. The organization can assume or self-insure. You hate to use the word self-insure because people jump at it, but assume a higher deductible, higher liability for deductibles for the organization. The employees' deductibles stay the same. And when you do that, as an example, like $5,000, when you do that, they refigure what the claims are going to be and what the expenses are going to be. And quite often, you could see a pretty good reduction in your costs. My company implemented that in a year where we were looking at a large increase. And when we looked at that option, we actually put it to a flat year-to-year change. So that's something that we should look at with our brokers to consider, if that's going to save us some money.
Okay, sorry about that. Steve and I were just going through. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Dick, I totally agree with you. We do have a high deductible plan. I know that you were just using that as an example. So family deductibles are $5,000, for example. Then we use an HRA account to cover some of that. There's certain new developments in the industry, George, you may know about something called ICRA. We're exploring that option with our broker. This is very new stuff in terms of becoming available, and being compliant with the Affordable Care Act. So, I mean, there's a lot of nuances and things like that we're working closely, and Kathy's in HR is all over it with Dealey and Chris Carroll.
Okay, so a couple things on that. Obviously, that is a big number. I'm glad to see a lot of questions coming in on it. Very good questions, and then obviously there was expertise out there. We have tapped George's expertise and Larry's over the last 2 years since I've been in here, as well as other people there, whether it's IT with Doug or anything else. So we're fortunate to have that. Steve's got a good background on it, so does Kathy, but everybody's doing everything possible to keep these numbers from really going high. But, you're right, things happened, right? And you guys kind of put it into perspective in examples or granular what happens. So again, those three numbers is somewhere in the $50 range. So Steve and I are distanced in 6 feet, and you can see we're always wearing the mask if the other one's talking. When I use that word prudent today, and some chuckle at it, but keep in mind, this is one of them, because you heard Larry say, and Steve will tell you, and Kathy will tell you, it's going this way over the next couple of years. And we see that already, and it's based upon, what did you say, Larry? History, experience, whatever. And I'll go forward, I'll say property and casualty as opposed to just lumping the whole thing as liability, all right? So that's a big number. Definitely has to be looked at over this week and as well as with the board. But we need to be prudent on that and understand that this is going up. Any other questions? That's excellent. I mean, this is, before we get granular with all the department heads, you're really getting the overall, and it puts it all into perspectives. Anything else you want to hone in on? Just checking the time. I know I have the chief and Dave coming in at 10. They're probably out there, and we're going to transfer to the other room in a few minutes. But I want to answer all your questions. This is a big piece. Anything else?
John, we're not seeing any more questions at this time.
All righty. All right. So with that said, Steve, you want to add anything or something with the agenda? Steve's got some points he just wants to talk about with you all before Steve and I'll take a break. We'll go in the other room and we'll have the fire department ready at 10. Okay.
No,
Steve.
the only thing I just suggested to John is maybe we can combine the one at 2 o'clock for HR, general admin, GM's office with the 10:45, because I was going to bring in my team, and Kathy's obviously a part of my team, can talk about human resources. So I'll start in at 10:45, assuming we stay on schedule, and combine those, if that's okay with everybody.
It's good with me. So if we do that,
That's fine.
Okay.
yeah. And so if we do that, Steve, I'm just looking at this agenda, and Dick, that means 12:30 would be golf with John Malinowski and his number 2 or number 1, Justin Hatchorn. And then we should be good for the day outside of a review and action items. Okay. I'm not going to move people around like we've done in the past, unless you specifically tell me to try to bring in from other days. I'm not, unless you all, tell me. Okay. All right. So a 5-minute break, and we'll be on the other screen. Okay. Thank you.
Ready to go.
Okay, so Dick is back. His team's back, pretty much on target. Dave and Steve are here. They're going to, as you can see, they're live from the fire department. They will go through the budget with you line by line. I just want to just say a couple things first. I mean, we've gone through this with Dave and Steve. It's very thorough. Last year, I just want to put it in perspective. They brought in a flat budget, basically. So, keep in mind, I mean, they have a lot of challenges like we do, probably more challenges, which I'm sure Dave and Steve will get into. And they brought back a very prudent, a very good budget. So with that said, I'm going to hand off to Dave and Steve. I mean, it's section 10 in your binder. And Dave, if you're doing the talking, you're in.
I am. Okay, thank you, everybody, for inviting us in. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate working with you. We enjoyed working with you last year, and we've enjoyed working with John, Steve, and the board members this year. So we'll get started. I'm looking at probably what you are looking at, and I'm looking at the right side of this, which is called operating expense general. And I'm going to begin with member benefits. Member benefits.
Can I put you on hold for 1 second?
Yeah.
So we're hearing a lot of speaker rebound. If you could just lower your speakers so you can hear, maybe it'll help with reverberation. We can try that. You want to try that? All right, we'll try that. All right, my speaker is at 100. If everybody lowers their speaker, let's see what happens. Okay. Ready to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. We just lowered our speaker too, and our mic. All right, the first category we have is member benefits, category 4300, which is, we're going to stay the same as last year. Member benefits covers the areas of our banquet, our craft feast, assuming we can have them. It also includes the water that we purchase and put on the apparatus for when we are on calls for our staff. It covers drill expenses, and it covers other types of food that we do purchase when we have, for example, if we have a long call or whatever, we may purchase food. We do purchase food here for the crews that do respond. It also covers our canteen, which is our committee that while we are on long calls, for example, fire, the hazmat that we had this year, and long automobile accident calls, they come out and they provide us hydration and food during calls. The next category is utilities. Based on our past history, we believe that we're going to go up a little bit in utilities, so that's why we went up from 51 to 60 on utilities. Repair and maintenance. Repair and maintenance largely, well, covers both of the stations, but it largely is covering what we're doing in South Station with our Band-Aid approach to take care of the hemorrhage we have here. As John and some of you know, that we are in the early stages of developing a concept plan to renovate this station to bring it up to standards. It is sorely behind the times. It doesn't come close to meeting the National Fire Protection standards that we are required to comply with as a department. And so again, we are working with Mans Woodward Studios out of Baltimore, as well as with Public Works here and with John and others here to come up with a design that does meet standards and yet is reasonable as far as cost goes. However, in the meantime, we have to keep putting Band-Aids on a hemorrhage, like I mentioned. An example of which is that we have gas-fired burners in the bay to keep our apparatus warm in the wintertime. And last year, the gas line fell out of the ceiling. So we had to replace the gas line, and those types of things are happening on a routine basis. And that is the repair and maintenance.
Going over to 4607, communication.
I guess I have a question on that. You mentioned that there's some architectural work. Is there some design work going on in this increase here?
Yeah, no, it's not in this increase. We've already paid for the design work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
So moving on to communications maintenance. So what this covers is an increase of $3,000 to $8,000. We have aging pagers. That's how we are alerted to respond to calls that need to be replaced. Moving down to fire expenses, again, there is an increase there. That is mainly due to hoses and appliances that need to be replaced due to aging equipment and failed hoses. When I say appliances, what I'm talking about is hydrant connections, female to female connections for hoses and pumps, etc.
Okay, I'm going to move down to 4705, which is fire police expenses. We're keeping that the same as $4,000. What we do with that money is we buy and or replace equipment that the fire police use to manage the traffic on the scene. We are purchasing new coats because some of our coats are 30 years old and are falling apart. We have to have gear for every every season. So we have some winter coats that we're replacing. We're also replacing lights that are on the vehicles because those are beginning to break down. We had to replace 3 last year. We're going to replace them this year, but we're keeping that static.
Turnout Gear and Ppe, what this consists of is everybody that was involved in the Fire Ops 101. It includes your helmet, coat, pants, boots. We here at the department have done a pretty decent job of staggering these purchases so we don't have all 40 some sets go out at one time. So we're keeping that at 25. We're up to par on gear. We just have to start replacing some of the older models that are out there. There's a 10-year lifespan on this gear, and we do actively make sure that that is taken care of for our members.
Okay, I'm going to jump down to 4720, which is department uniforms. We feel it's really important from a identification standpoint, Homeland Security, Force Protection, et cetera, that we make sure that our members have gear, have T-shirts, have job shirts, and that sort of thing, so that when they're on a scene, they can be identified. And so we generally purchase them on a routine basis. They don't exactly have a long shelf life because we get dirty and they tear, et cetera, but yet we still keep it at about $5,000 in our what we call our store, where we distribute the apparel. The member physicals, we are very fortunate here in this department that we do provide member physicals for our members on an annual basis. Every category of member, fire, EMS, fire, police, and career, we're talking about volunteers up here though, have physicals on an annual basis. And again, I think that's important to note because if you go on the Western Shore across the bridge, there are a ton of volunteer fire departments that don't provide physicals ever for their people. And we think it's important that we baseline our members as far as their medical situation and that we keep them and us up to speed on their situation.
Moving on to 4800 EMS Supplies and Maintenance. The EMS supplies is really what it is. It's supplies to keep the ambulance up and running, and maintenance would be the service contracts that we have on our heart monitors, stretchers, etc. Just without a maintenance plan on the heart monitor, just to replace the screen that would get damaged, is over $4,000. So we wisely invested that money in these service contracts, and that's at the $35,000 as you see. The billing on 4804, that is the 8% that we pay our billing company, which comes out to $38,000.
4409 is building insurance, and that is staying stagnant. That's obviously our insurance for North Station and South Station.
4900 training, this is volunteer fire training. It's kept at 6,000. We usually send people out to conferences wherever they may be, San Francisco, Indiana. But with the whole virus crisis right now, we're just keeping that at 6,000 and doing in-house training, buying different tabletop scenarios for our members. 5,000 would be apparatus maintenance, and that's really what it costs us to maintain. $58,000 is what it costs us to maintain the engines, ambulances, and utility trucks that we have.
Category 5200 is office expenses. We've increased that to 15,000. The reason is because we've made a determination that the copy machine that we have, the copy machines that we have been renting them, and the cost of rental has gotten so expensive that it is more cost effective for us to purchase the machines, purchase new machines, and then just manage it that way rather than paying it on a basis of usage and a monthly rental cost. That's why we increased that price. Public education is what we do every year. We go out to the schools and we distribute helmets and coloring books and that sort of thing. to the schools. We even did it under the COVID earlier this year for the schools that were open, but we do this every year. And this also includes our Fire Prevention Day, which is normally October timeframe, and the expenses that we purchase for that particular reason. Professional fees are the fees that we pay for our auditor and our attorney on an annual basis.
5,300 fuel, 23,000. That pretty much self-explanatory there. The special events category at 10,000. We're going to leave that at 10. There's no reason for us to increase that right now. What that covers is 4th of July, any type of situation, event where we would need to bring in extra staff. It could be a storm, whether it's snow or hurricane, you know, and that's where the special events, it helps us with the payroll on that.
Salary.
Moving down to the compensation and related costs, the salary this year went to $1,087,301, which includes their step increases for all the full-time paramedics.
Yeah, now for those that aren't familiar, there is a differentiation there. We have jumped down now into a category that is for our career staff, the 12 career individuals, paramedic firefighters that work for this department. Everything we covered up above that is for the volunteers. Go ahead. Sorry.
4403, again, benefits. 4208 is the workman's comp insurance. 4711, your EMS training, and this is a little bit different than the fire training. The paramedics have to do a paramedic recert every year, and that also includes their ACLS and their pediatric ALS certifications, and that's all done here at the station, where we have to pay, you know, just to get the equipment, the mannequins, etc. The uniforms, again, just something so all of our members have all of our employees are wearing the same uniform all the time. So we did decrease that. Last year it was at 10,000, so we could get everybody up to par. We have decreased that because then we do have uniforms for everyone. And then employee physicals, it is what it is. Like Dave said, on the department physicals, member physicals above, we do a baseline and then we make them get a physical every year just so we can make sure that they're in good health.
Capital.
The capital purchases this year, I was able to keep that at 45 with no increase. We do have, and what that's going to cover this year are, I have 19 SCBA bottles, which are air breathing bottles that are going to expire, and that right there is about $22,000 worth of that 45. I do have a couple air packs that are expired, and we're going to be purchasing the remainder of the 4 gas meters to place. So each unit has a gas meter on there with the amount of calls that we're actually running.
And if you look at the upper left-hand corner under revenue, this shows the various types of revenue that we do get outside of OPA as well as OPA. Our EMS billing is the billing for obviously ALS, EMS, and then as we already indicated, 8% of that goes back to the billing contract company. And then we have the county fire distribution, county EMS, the 508 money, which is the state Amos money, that is equipment funding specifically, and then interest on the investments. So if you look below, there's our request for OPA. We have the operating expenses and the compensation that we just went over, the apparatus replacement cost, which is the 50-50, 50% you, 50% us, the capital purchases, which the chief just went over, which then is the total expenses minus the revenue, and our request is $722,150.
And that makes what we're asking is a increase of $46,225 from last year's request.
And I'll dovetail with what John said earlier. Last year, we were requested to come in flat. It was a very difficult challenge for us, but we did come in flat. We did take some of our reserves to compensate from that. which obviously took money out of our building fund as well as our apparatus replacement. So we've done the best to come in as efficiently, effectively as we can and still provide the services we need to provide for the community. That's pretty much it.
George?
I have three questions. It's going to echo. But anyway, on the revenue from the state and the county that you have there, is that already information we have from them and that's a guarantee, or is that what we pretty much think we're going to get this year?
That's what we think we're going to get. Steve, you want to talk about that? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna get. So we get $250,000 from the county. It's actually $235,000 with a $15,000 grant. And on top of that, we get what's called county pass-through money, which when we go outside of our first due, so if we go outside of the gates of Ocean Pines, it's an extra $1,000 that we get from the county. So that's where you see that $300,000 is a projected amount that we will receive from the county this year.
Okay, so you're saying that that's a definite then?
That's a projection.
It's very close.
Okay. On the office expenses, the new copiers, what's the life cycle of the copiers versus the rent? In other words, I know when we're usually in a contract, we're renting, they'll upgrade them as the contract goes through, but now we're purchasing them. And somewhere along the line, we will obviously need to purchase new ones. So do we know the life cycle of the units we're buying?
Well, I don't have that at my fingertips. However, the copiers that we have here that we've been renting these for years and years without replacement.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we have very old copiers at both stations right now that we have been renting for years and years. And as I said, this past year we looked into it and we anticipated that if we purchased them rather than rent them, that we could amortize that within a couple of years. But of course, I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, thank you. One last one. The benefits, 209,000 up to 238,000. That's about judging just a quick in my head math, 14% maybe increase.
Oh, yeah.
But yet we talked about 30% for benefits.
Well,
is that number high enough is my question, the 238?
Is it high enough? Well, this covers the our proportion of the retirement system
And the health insurance.
And the health
insurance.
Right.
And yeah. This is the projection that we received from the insurance company for this year with the increase.
George, I think we're on a different plan than OPA.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we're not the same with you.
All right.
I understand. Thank you. I didn't know it was a different plan.
Yeah,
My
You're
mistake.
welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody's asking a question. The mic is off of it. Okay. So I have could you, I just didn't hear it, but you went through the county EMS where we're going from 418 to 508 uptick in revenue. It's a good thing. What was that again?
The county, he's looking
Okay.
over here.
So the county EMS, what we did as fire chiefs and presidents last year is we went and met with the county commissioners to try to get an increase on what's called an FTE, which is a full-time equivalent. So the county did give us an extra $1,000 per full-time equivalent, and they also increased the funding that we get per ambulance. So that's where the increase is on that part. But we are petitioning the county again to do the same thing, but that is not guaranteed, and that would be for 22-23 budget.
Okay. For the benefit of everybody here at B&F, could you articulate to everybody the cost sharing arrangement we have with capital purchases so everybody understands?
Yeah, the cost sharing is, I'm sorry. The cost sharing per the memorandum of agreement between this department and OPA is a 50-50 cost share on the on apparatus replacement. So that we have to raise our 50% based on fundraising. And I'm sure you're quite familiar that historically we raffled off houses. And we could do that because we could afford at that time to purchase the lots and put a decent house on top of it. We can no longer afford that. In fact, several years ago, we took a real bath on it. Therefore, at that point in time, we switched to vehicles. And so for the last couple of years, we have been raffling off trucks for that matter. And so we require our members to do at least 20 hours of fundraising on an annual basis to help us sell raffle tickets, et cetera. It's largely raffle tickets. It's largely the raffle tickets and the sign program. You're very familiar with the green signs that are going up, and that Public Works is going around making sure that people have their numbers displayed, that they can be viewed from the street. And if you look at the weekly, what's happening in Ocean Pines, you'll see that under that category, they have also identified that they can purchase the signs from us. So our sign program is doing very well. Why do we care about the sign program? We care about the sign program because at nighttime you can't see anything in Ocean Pines. And so you can't see the house numbers, and the signs are reflective. And so we can get to the scene a lot easier by seeing those signs. But I don't know, what else do you want to say about that?
One thing, Larry, I think you and I and Dave and John, we've discussed, we're going to be looking at the replacement schedule this year and updating it so we can make sure that we are both putting in the correct amounts. Some of these equipment is not going to be replaced till 2037, 2047, but we want to make sure that we're putting in enough and you guys are putting in enough to make sure that when it comes time in 2037, that the money is there to replace the tower ladder that we have, which was purchased in 2007 for $762,000. 2037, it says the cost is going to be $1 million. Well, right now in 2021, that piece of equipment is very close to being $1 million. So we have some fine tuning to do on this as well, and we will get that done. But that's where that breakdown comes through with the MOU and the 50-50 split.
And the apparatus replacement schedule is based on a county requirement. The county has standards for replacing fire apparatus, and we are required to adhere to those standards.
Doug, did you take your hand down?
So for the benefit of the B&F committee, John Viola and I met with Steve and Dave, prior to this. One of the topics was the reserve schedule they have for their equipment. Right now we're in the budget, I think it's $130K. Just an FYI that we will certainly need to make sure that we continue to fund the reserve account over the next several years. I did a quick calculation, and if you look out to 2026, we're projecting replacement capital costs for their equipment to the tune of about $1.87 million. If we continue at the same level, we'll be by 2026, we'll be a couple $100K short of the contribution. So not that we have to do anything today, but just kind of make an awareness that we will look at increasing the contribution to their reserve studies per the MOU and per the replacement costs. I think Dave and Steve, we talked about possibly looking at a 5-year purchasing plan just so that, the board is aware of what may be in the pipeline for purchasing and can plan accordingly.
Yes.
So I think this just no action at this point. Just want to make everybody aware that we're looking at that, and it's something that we'll have to follow up on accordingly.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, Dick.
All right, do we have any comments or questions?
Yeah, this is Brian. I have a few questions. Thanks for coming out, guys, and giving us a briefing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, great. One more question on the increase from the county funding. Is that going to be, is that just for this year, or is that you anticipate having that increased funding going forward?
What are you referring to, fire or EMS?
Well, I guess the big increase is the EMS funding. I was just wanted to know if you thought that was just a 1-year increase, or do you anticipate getting that increased funding in the years going forward?
It is negotiated every year. We do expect it to continue. Like I said, we are approaching them to actually do more in the coming budget cycles. The fire, where you see that 286 to 300, that will vary. The pass-through money, as I stated, with that $1,000 outside of the gates of Ocean Pines, that could vary. We had 50 calls this year outside. Now, next year we might only have 30. So that's something that we have to take into consideration.
Okay, I guess I understand then. So it's a nice significant increase for this year. That's great.
Yeah.
A couple more questions on the expense side. The building insurance, we were just discussing with the GM about how OPA's the property and casualty insurance is going up significantly. You don't anticipate an increase in your own building insurances for this year?
No, this is what we were quoted by our insurance company at this point in time.
Okay. All right. Great. That's wonderful. Back to the copy machines. I would think that if you're purchasing copy machines, they would be a capital expense purchase rather than just expensing them outright. Am I on the wrong track
They might be
there?
under the threshold, Dave, right? They're under the threshold.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. And lastly, this might be a question for Steve Phillips. The 722-150 that's requested from OP on the detail page, over on the summary, it's 744,950 in the proposed budget column.
Very good, Brian.
Yeah, good
Which
catch.
one is the right number?
Yeah, I added in, their budget does not include what we did last year, which was the payment of the benefit for the volunteer firefighters to get $1,200 towards their cable bills, utility bills.
Gotcha.
That is estimated in there about $20,000.
Yeah, next year we'll have that incorporated with Dave and Steve's schedule.
So the good number for OPA contribution is the 744,950.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you, guys.
And the difference, or what I spoke about earlier, is it's still the $5 on the assessment.
Okay, very good. Thank you, man.
Okay, so I just wanted to add a couple of things. I did mention they were flat last year. We did a lot of scrubbing this year. We did a lot of work with Dave and Steve, Chief. They put a lot into this. They have a lot of challenges, as we all do. They probably have our challenges. Plus, CFO Doug, he does a lot of legwork with us, as well as Steve on this. Steve Larry. Obviously, their reserves and their equipment is a big number. Keep in mind, and I heard them say they are going to look at it. Steve, our controller, did look at it for this year. Their accounting firm signs off on all the years and everything, but we do believe that there will be some changes or whatever, as Doug mentioned. Steve and I feel that we are going to do the DMA, what we call DMA Light, which Budget and Finance recommended, hopefully in the spring with everything else going on. And we're going to talk to Dave and Steve about that too, from their end. So obviously BNF, the CFO, and everybody will be involved with that. So that's what we're looking at, okay? Unless you all feel different right now. Okay, thank you. Dick, if that's it, I want to say thanks to Dave.
We still have another question. Tom has a question.
I did the math here. You may want to turn that off, Dick.
We've got a fire engine on the street.
There we go. I've done, hi, Dave and Steve. Listen, I've done the math here on that 46,225. That equates to a $5.50 assessment increase per household. But I'm curious to know, and maybe Doug or Larry can answer this question. We have two big facilities in Ocean Pines, the Woodlands Catered Living and the Mackey Stencil House. Do they pay us assessments? I mean, because we provide, and that is that based upon the number of residents they have, the number of the number of calls.
Is that correct, Steve? Doesn't the retirement facility out there, they pay us per call?
I'm having a real hard time here, and there's a bad echo.
Yeah, we're having trouble over here too.
They also,
Everybody should have their mic off, with the exception of Larry.
they also, from an assessment standpoint, there is a flat assessment that goes to that facility for Ocean Pine. So we get paid an assessment for them. But, and Steve or Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you guys told me that every time we run out there for something, or EMS mainly, we do get to charge for that.
That's correct. We do charge the patient. It is billed to their insurance company. But as far as assessments go, I'm not sure what OPA actually
Right.
charges for assessment.
That's right. They pay an assessment to us.
Okay. Any more questions on fire? EMS? All right, I think we're good.
Okay. Dave, Steve, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody out there. Appreciate it.
Steve Phillips will reach out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, Dick, we have our next team here, but if your team wants to take a break for 2 minutes, that's fine, but we're ready.
I think we're still ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Next up on the agenda, finance, membership, and IT. Our controller, Steve Phillips, he has his team in here. He has his number twos, and I'm sure we are going to get a total presentation. Steve.
Oh, I forgot the slide. Okay, everybody, as I mentioned a little bit earlier this morning, I'm going to combine also, I have in the room human resources, and then we'll also touch on John's area a little bit and see if he knows his budget, and general admin as well. But while I have all my number twos in the room, I'll start with IT, finance, so we can start on that section, which ends up being section 4.
Hey, Steve. Steve, why don't you introduce your team?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Thanks, Dick. Ruth Ann is
Ruth Ann.
very anxious to introduce herself.
Stand up.
Okay, so Ruth Ann is our membership supervisor. For everybody that has not met Ruth Ann, but she is obviously in charge of the front desk here at the admin building. Julia in the back is our accounting manager, been here now over a year, right?
Year and a half.
Okay.
It was my pleasure.
Was.
And still is.
She's the accounting manager, and then of course most of you probably know Kathy, who's human resources. My other, I guess, what you call number 2 would be Steve Grabowski, who's not in the room. He's working on other technical things around the areas here.
He's working on North Star.
Yeah. Okay, so just a quick synopsis of the year here. Within finance, obviously it's been a team effort all year. We continue to navigate through this unusual year together. COVID's affected us here within finance, just like everybody else. HR probably the most, of course. Kathy's dealing daily with calls, with legal, the Worcester County Health Department. She's having constant communication with employees to make sure all protocols are, and trying to minimize any risk or liability here for OPA. IT, of course, making sure that, we have the necessary remote capabilities like we do today. And then, of course, accounting, we got our PPP, so we have documentation. We're still working on forgiveness application. Julia has been instrumental in managing the CARES Act funding from Worcester County. We're still we're supposed to turn in the paperwork by January 31st in order to get reimbursement for that. So, I mean, that's an ad hoc on top of the normal responsibilities. Ruth Ann, of course, navigating the waters of this challenging season on the front desk. You know, she's worked, you know, incredibly hand in hand with North Star. You know, membership really is the core of the system. So, you know, she's been really occupied with trying to work through that this year, and then also manage in a different capacity this year. So that's my sales pitch. Of course, we're dealing with this new North Star system, the setup and implementation. I'm sure we'll have questions as we go through. You know, we still are dealing with that today. And you know, it's going to be a continual effort to bring it up to speed. So to look at the budget from a bottom line standpoint, we are projecting an increase of approximately $50,000 from the forecast and approximately $20,000 from the budget. Some of the big components to note on there, you can notice that the revenues are actually going up. That's one proposal that we have in here is an increase. We don't get many revenues within the finance cost center, not really a profit center like some of the other amenities, but we do get our transfer fees that Ruth Ann has been, that she processes. Ruth Ann proposed and the GM and I put it forward an increase from $25 to $50 per transfer based on the administrative work that goes into that and the number of transfers that are occurring these days. So that is a kind of an additional revenue stream that we're looking at, and you can see that factored into the budget here. And then really, you know, from an FTE standpoint, we have the summary schedules. There's nothing in terms of incremental numbers there to our total hours. You know, the main components are the pieces we touched on this morning with the healthcare increases that you'll see in payroll costs, and then the merit increases that you'll see in there at the 3%. You know, anything else, you know, from a breakdown standpoint, you guys have with our contracted services, we, you know, have our normal payroll processing fees, our 401k fees. We did, I guess, to touch on one other implementation we did this year in the midst of everything else that was going on. Kathy was, you know, really instrumental on the 401k switch over to ADP. So now we are integrating that with our payroll system, and we no longer are using a census as our third-party trustee. We're using the ADP services. So this is definitely streamlined for employees. They can make their contributions, you know, by using the online portal. It's also streamlined processes for Kathy as well to make things more efficient operationally. And then, you know, we have our normal postage because we still, you know, are sending out the paper bills. And of course, our supplies and insurance. So nothing too exciting outside of the payroll costs, of course, that make up the majority of the group. Any questions?
So, Steve, it looks like in your head count, you've gone like a +1 in full-time and a minus some portion of part-time. Is that right?
Yeah, we've had the number of hours in there, Dick, so it's more or less a reallocation. When I inherited it, Art had built in that number for hours, and it remained in the budget, but we did not fill it. Basically, so we decided to reallocate those hours. We've also had some, based on, I guess, mix of employees, we've had some healthcare savings, and basically that has been able to offset the healthcare cost of the full-time individual. John wanted to add something.
So thank you, Steve. So the only reason why I know this part was I wasn't here 3 years ago, and I'm going to just look at Doug and Larry, but there was a position that was created 3 years ago that we did fill. That person left after I had left. We felt that we didn't need to fill it. We were trying to do it in other ways. Steve has been successful with a team over the last couple of years with North Star and everything else. We believed that it made sense to fill that spot again. So it was kind of an open spot that we were trying to do, whether it was overtime, mix of hours, part-time. But the bottom line is that position's been there. We just didn't fill it. We were hoping that we didn't have to, but right now we believe it's necessary and we will fill it. That was the Gina position, Doug, 3 years ago, and the board had approved that, Brett told me. So it's not an increase. We did reallocate, put it back to something that actually was on the books. And Steve has some ideas with that position. I'm sure Julia's a part of it too, that the work that they do could possibly save us money along the lines of some premiums. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned some medical insurance opportunities that we have, and Kathy right now is just overwhelmed with COVID, legal associated with that, et cetera. They could certainly help her out on the administrative side and trying to get the best. Some of the options that I mentioned are definitely more intensive in terms of labor that would be required internally. So I think now's the perfect opportunity that we can maybe see some direct benefit from that. In addition, it was really started up based on North Star and Julia. Julia does a lot of reconciliation work and detail-oriented, cash work, things that, should be done by an accountant one type position, where I think Julia could certainly add a lot more value in terms of internal control implementation, areas like that.
And just one other point to add on there, and this might have come up in some other meetings, BNF, but I'm a firm believer, the way I believe Public Works is a support system or support department for all our other amenities and everything, it should be looked at that way. I believe finance is the same. And what I'm trying to do, or we're all going to try to do, is have the finance team do some of the work more on the financial nature that happened in some of the other departments and to look at controls and stuff. So that's the kind of stuff I wanted to do. We will get there. We've done some already to help out the departments. So that the rest of the departments, so that they can allocate their resource and their time more towards the work that they do in their amenities. Okay?
George, just a quick one, and looking at the payroll across the board here, not just in this department, but throughout all the departments, it fluctuates from, I think I had a low of like 14% and then maybe a high of 44, 48%. I'm assuming that's due to the makeup of each department being some part-time, some full-time. Is that right?
So I'm sorry, George. John was asking me a question at the same time, but I heard the variation of the payroll varies between departments.
Yes, it's different percentages in each department. I mean, not just this area. I went through it. I think I found a low of 15% and then a high of like 44, 48%. And it fluctuates. I'm assuming that's a product of the fact that some departments have a lot of part-time employees, so the cost is allocated differently. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, so I would suggest looking at page, George, page 13 in the summary tab number 1. So I put together a walk that I've done the last few years, which will really help people understand the salaries breakdown between budget to budget walk. And you can see where we started in 21 and how we end up at 22. And it shows the 3% and it shows the medical increase portion, but it also shows other adjustments. So there's a couple, general maintenance came down significantly. John alluded to that because that was a position that we had in there that we decided we did not need anymore. police was the other kind of restructuring, I guess, that was done with positions within there. That's another big one. But yeah, you're right in terms of, part-time are going to throw some of those numbers out of whack, in aquatics and some of the more part-time heavy areas.
Can I explain the bandit to them? Is that a question?
Okay, thanks. I was figuring that's what it was, but thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, let me just jump in. It's easier for me to talk than text, so I am getting the question already, and a good question. What's the title of the position? What is it? So the position was on the books, whatever it was last time I was in here 3 years ago now. It was approved by the board. When I first came in, they told me about it. They had a person in mind. We filled it. I actually did the job description back there then, and I've talked to HR again now. I explained to Brett it should be a banded, and I know George will know, a banded position, which was basically something I had similar in the past where it was either accountant 1 or accountant 2. And depending on the level of the person we bring in, and depending on, if we do bring in somebody, we can work with that person as they grow over time and develop a position for them. So the title, we believe it will be accountant 1, but it's a banded position, which I'd like to do more of here. I worked with Siegel, they were Simpson back then, and discussed about that. Okay. The salary range and all that will be within that banded range, which was there 3 years ago. Probably more towards the lower side is what we're anticipating.
Yeah, real quick, Stephen, I think you covered this already. I just want to get it in my notes. The source of the miscellaneous revenue that's now up to 20K. Certainly, I feel it's, as long as you're saying it's attainable, it is. What's the source of that revenue? I just want to get it in my notes.
Yeah, it's the transfer fees.
I can't hear him.
Transfer fees for properties. So it's going up from $25 to $50.
Do we need approval for that?
Well, I mean, I think all the rates we kind of.
So you have them in there?
Budget. Well,
Okay,
I don't have.
Yeah, so Doug, we're going to put that, or Steve will put it on the rate schedule on the bottom so that it's transparent in there. I know I need approval from the board if we increase any rates for amenities or anything, so we'll put that on there also, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, just put it on.
Okay, any other
Yes.
questions?
Steve, can I take you back to to page 13 in the first tab? The salary walk? And maybe you could talk a little bit about, your other adjustments there to help us understand what that collective body is there.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's vacancies that get filled, so when I adopt the budget, last year, I make assumptions of who's in that position, and that position changes year over year. So, that when you bring somebody in at the market rate, it's going to be different than, somebody who's been here 30 years. So you have variances there that shake out. So, you're going to see increases, decreases, small amounts. So that's why I touched on the big ones. The big ones are going to show up because of eliminations, and that's where the general maintenance 78,000, it makes up 50% of your 150,000 in that total other adjustments, and your police. Those two components are really make up the majority of your total column there. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And then we had some favorability too. So, Public Works, for example, 25,000. So yeah, I mean, there's some offsets there. Anything my all-star team wants to add?
We've survived 2020. Congratulations to all of us. Still got a ways to go, but we got a manage this. I think we've done a really good job, department heads, working with human resources. So I'm very pleased with the results that we've received in that.
Well, I want to add that grant that I'm working on, it was extended to December 2021. So we do have it, I'm checking with the county, but I'm pretty much sure we.
So I have a bill.
Then,
Okay, awesome.
Julia, they say they can't hear you. So Julia, why don't you just jump in a little louder? Steve and I will move. You can come in closer, but she's got some good information on, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I just find out that grant that I'm working on, it was extended to December 2021. I'm checking with the county to confirm that it's going to be the case for us, but we may be able to utilize this money, the full amount.
I definitely have a couple items for you. Yeah.
Okay. It's a good thing because we did run out of time. We only had a few months to use the money, and now we have the whole
Right.
year. Yep. Laptops.
Okay, Julia, thank you. Kathy, Ruth Ann. Okay,
Excuse
Steve,
me, this is Brian. What's the tentative amount gonna be for that grant? I know it's kind of variable, but what do you anticipate the total could be?
Well, the total is $170,000, but we were able to use about half of that, 85,000, and we would have to return the other half back to the county. But now we do have more time to use the remainder of the funds until the end of the year.
So to put that in perspective, Brian, that's that number I gave you at the beginning, the 100,000. Yeah.
Okay, all right, I got it. Thank you. Just wanted to make a note for the minutes. Thank you.
You know,
So-
another thing they add here, oh, I'm sorry, somebody said something.
Yeah, no, go ahead, John.
So another thing they add here, and I left it out in the beginning, is put it all, the whole picture and everything, and you see when they go through each department already, the increases are basically the salary and benefits. Steve's done for me, and he's tracked this several times, and we've gone back over the last couple of years. But if I take total revenue, Steve, total everything, not just the assessment, and then I look at my salary, we look at our salaries and benefits, what percentage are we to our total gross overall revenues and assessments?
About 70.
So he's in a ballpark of 70%. Just to put in perspective that we're all sitting here and everything we're doing, 70% of all the money we take in goes to salaries and benefits. Okay, and it's not uncommon, but just to put it in perspective. And when you see the increases that we're getting, that we talked about from the beginning, and you're going to see every time you go through a department or amenity, that's basically where the change is from budget to budget. Okay.
Okay. So I have a question here. So we've been talking about accounting policy and procedures manuals and so forth. And hopefully this is a year that we can get around to doing it. One of the things talked about was a technical writer and so forth to help that happen. Is anything in this budget, is there any money in this budget for that?
No, but I mean, I think this reallocation position could help Julia
Exactly.
basically be the point person for this.
Right. So Dick, I'm sure you're familiar with the term, and George, I know you would be, value added. So obviously I'm trying, Julia has a very strong background, as many of our team has. I hope, or we hope to get eventually to that's the type of work coming out of there. I mean, we got a lot on our plate. I'm not, giving excuses, but that's the type of work that I want finance doing. Steve wants, they all want. We'll get there. We just have a lot, right? Managing pandemic, implementing a major system, which is the right thing to do, and a lot of other stuff. But that's how we want to structure this finance team. But we might be a year away from doing that. That's the kind of stuff I want to do and be a part of too.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Any other finance and membership department questions?
Membership question. Any membership questions?
Well, that's the section, finance and membership, just went through, yeah.
Steve will do it. I don't know, he said he wants us to do memberships. Is there a section for that?
Oh, no, the finance and membership are all together, so just so everybody understands, it's finance, IT, membership, it's all summarized in that, so all the salaries for all those NHR are all in the finance budget.
So then I got a question for you, Steve. Where do you put the North Star? Where's the North Star fees and the licenses that are operational every year? Where do you have that?
So the operational are in the general admin that we're gonna jump into here probably next, if that's okay.
Yeah, we have another question here, and I have a question also. So the extra cost or any extra cost for North Star to get us where we need to be over in that next budget year, is there funds in there for that? Anywhere?
So we don't have any consulting funds, if that's kind of what you're going at there. I mean, that would be, I guess, a capital expenditure probably.
Exactly.
That we could factor into our capital schedule when we get to it.
All right. So Dick, if I could jump in on this too, Steve's right. So operationally, there's no increase, the license fees and all that. There is no more consultant in there. The cost is this. The cost of implementing this is we're utilizing a team, whether it's Julia, Ruth Ann, I can keep going on, and even other departments where a percentage of their time is being allocated to the North Star. So that's where the additional is, but we're trying to absorb that with everything else. But then some things like what we'd like to do, like the technical and procedures and all that stuff is just put to the side. But that's where that cost is, Dick, embedded, especially the Steve and Howard, the IT guys, and I've updated you before on the boards. They're telling me right now 75% of their time is focused on North Star. Now, granted, maybe a high percentage of their time was on Lanza or anything else, but certainly Julia, Ruth Dan in this group, as well as those other super users that I've mentioned in the past, are working on it. So that's where you see that. Good question on your end as far as the capital side of it. And you heard Steve say we did not put anything extra in there, but I do believe we still have some money left from the original budget. Is that true?
A little bit.
A little bit. So maybe that's something that when we get to that is the capital, we're certainly open to discussing it.
All right, Brian?
Yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to the IT department and ask if since Steve and Howard are spending the majority of their time with North Star, any thought been given to bringing on another IT person to help those guys out?
I mean, no. I mean, to be honest with you, I think, we could get to that situation, I guess, during the season, maybe when it gets a little bit more burdensome for them. We'd have to evaluate that at that point. It was a little bit of a anomaly this year with COVID, of course, and the season being a little more abbreviated. But certainly Steve would have to tell me that, we would need an additional resource. I don't have that built in right now.
Okay, all right, just wondering. I'm sure, hopefully, their responsibilities, their work with North Star will start to wind down a bit, and they'll be able to devote more time to other things. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Steve heard us talking, and he walked right in and said, "I'll take that position."
I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good on the phone. That's a good question, and I guess on that one is stay tuned, but right now we're saying no.
All right, so we're ready to move next tab.
Yeah, so we're done with finance.
Okay, so
All right.
Steve is signing off his team. Thank you very much. The next scheduled is Julie Malinowski at 11:30. Dick, I leave it at your call. Do you want me to go get Julie, or do you want to take a break? I'll do whatever you want.
Do we want to jump into the general admin?
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. General admin. Yeah, Steve made a change this morning.
All right,
So he's going to do general admin and HR. I'm sorry.
John, we're ready to keep going.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let me go talk to Julie while Steve's gonna do the general admin. Or should I stay?
Yeah, why don't you stay?
So you can find out what's in it.
You got your budget too, so you might have to talk. Okay, so tab 2, general admin. I guess I can start at the top. The proposed number, you can see the variance there of the additional $121 or $221 that we currently have built in there. John, of course, went over that this morning. That's our influx of revenues from the assessment. And, we're going to get into the reserve contributions and things on the schedule. I believe tomorrow is when we get into capital. So, that $3.8 million you'll see tie out to that section when we get into that tomorrow. In terms of the other revenue sources that we have on here, interest charges, I do not, project any deviation from this year. We're tracking around that $50,000 that we have in the budget through the time period that we have this year thus far. Casino fees I did take up in terms of that money comes in, but then we restrict it basically per board action in terms of putting it into the roads reserve. That number's been trending upward. So 325 has been in there for a few years. I thought it was okay to take it up to $350,000 for the proposed budget next year. The right-of-way fees is an estimate.
Steve, can I interject something here? Just to take you back a line or so. So
Yep.
could you give me a little perspective as what was happening in 18 and 19, why the interest charges were so high?
Yeah, so they changed the interest that we charge the homeowners. It is down, and of course, Ruth Ann left me right when I need her. I think it went from 15 to 20% down to 5%. Doug might know
Yeah.
that number.
Yeah. The 6%, Doug.
Yeah, 6%.
So we were charging above the
Yeah,
directive.
yeah, we had a discussion with Jeremy. There was actually some stipulation, I believe it's section 12 of the DRs that stipulates the percentage that can be charged, and it can be changed by a vote of the board of directors at the February meeting, and we'll do that as we did in the past years. But there is one section 10, I believe, where it doesn't apply, and so we were a little bit inconsistent. So the guidance that we got from legal was to say the state of Maryland gives a guideline of 6%. We decided to stay in line with that. So it's the extra interest that's charged for late fees and delinquent accounts.
And it was basically statutory. We needed to get down to the 6%.
Right.
Our position.
Good question. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Okay, right-of-way fees is basically the money that we get from MediaCom. So that's still, like I said, no reason to change that number. I don't believe 165. The interest income, it's a function of the market, and we had $100,000 in the budget. Based on the returns I'm seeing, we're actually able to do pretty good now with the 1% of Bank of Ocean City, but I don't know how long into that. So I put it in. I was conservative and put $50,000 in there. Most of that
Hey,
money.
Steve, I have a question.
Okay.
Are we getting fees from Comcast also?
I'm sorry.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Aren't we getting fees from Comcast also?
I haven't received any revenues. I haven't been informed about it. I know we're getting bills.
I think by contract, we're supposed to be getting fees from them that will go in this line and increase that 165.
Yeah, Larry, let us look into that. I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Let Doug jump in. I know he knows about it. We talked about this before. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, it's in the contract. One of the things that when we drew up the contract, wanted to make sure that we didn't have any preferential treatment between Comcast and MediaCom, so they get the same pass-through fee associated with the, the residential accounts. So, but I think, Tom, you said it, I think it's probably going to end up being a wash, because as the people leave MediaCom and join on to Comcast, so it won't be a net increase.
Right.
It'll be balanced out, or assuming there's some people that don't have internet or cable TV, that'd be new customers, but I don't know that we can count on that as being a revenue generator.
The problem is Steve is saying he's not seeing any revenue from it, so obviously it's something we need to look into.
Yeah.
So, right, Larry, and I said, we'll look at it. When I just heard, said he had.
Yep.
Just wanted to bring it up.
Dick, I got a question. I can't get my hand raised on this thing here.
John,
Have we got any money in the budget for a special election for the dollar spending limit? Because I don't see any change in the election, the referendum.
Yeah, John. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I did not put anything in there. It's John might want to speak on it.
So the answer is no, is that right?
so the answer, yeah, I was going to make it easy. John, I was going to say no. There is no money in there for that.
Does that mean we're not going to have one?
Oh, wait, let me.
We're not going to discuss that, John.
Hold on,
because
let me,
let's
go with what
legal
I'm.
matter that's under negotiation.
Larry, let me just answer, then you can jump in, all right? So the answer is no, there's nothing in there, nor have I been instructed to, so it is not. Now, Larry or Doug, go ahead.
Again, this is a legal issue, and there is no agreement to do a referendum, so there's no need to put it in a budget at this point.
Yeah, I think to add on, I don't know that we have to. My note when I was looking at this is, should we consider having money in the budget in this line item for a referendum, especially given the fact that we just got reference from John's team that the referendum was upwards of, John, quote me if I'm wrong, it was upwards of 30K
Yes.
to conduct a full referendum. So unless we have favorability somewhere in the budget, I think we have to make a business decision whether or not we assume we might have one. I'd like to think that we wouldn't, but at some point, if we do have one, it'll eat into any kind of surplus or that we have regarding the
Right, and
operational
that's something,
expenses.
yeah.
The only other issue there is that we're currently looking at redoing the bylaws. So at some point, we may have to do a referendum. We do have to do a referendum to change the bylaws. So we may want to put something in for that. I'm not sure if we're going to get that done. It'll probably be next fiscal year, so it might be.
Yeah, that's a good point, Larry. The committee, and we set a soft target date of the annual meeting. Again, let me reiterate, a soft target date. But Larry's correct. If we have to do any changes or recommending any changes to the bylaws, that must be done by referendum. And the question is, should we put it in this year or defer and just sort of take that soft target date and push it into the next fiscal year? I think we're open for any kind of, discussion on that.
Yep. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, Dick, John, obviously BNF, you want to give guidance on it, it's
Well,
fine.
If it's something
Any
that's
recommendation?
likely to happen, we probably should be planning for it.
Well, there's always guidance.
It's probably an issue that, John, make a note of that we can discuss when the board reviews the budget.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep, Steve wrote it down.
Yeah, I would support that approach too. I think it's more of a board level decision.
Okay. Yep, and like I said, okay, we have it written down, duly noted.
Okay. George?
Just a question on the casino fees. I think early in the year, they were talking to the county about some of the fees going down to Pocomoke and southern Worcester County. And because they felt they weren't getting their fair share of that. I don't know where that stands now, what the county was doing with that, but would that impact our casino revenue if that took place? I guess that's a question maybe for Larry and Doug.
No, it doesn't. Our percentage is statutory, so the only thing that impacts is whether or not there's more or less use of the slot machines. And I always saw the projection, I think the projection for next year is 325. From Joe Moore, who is also the attorney for the casinos, when we met about the getting the zoning over there, the number was 325. If I remember talking, it was 325. That's what they're projecting our number is going to be.
I don't know what happened with the county on that, but I just reading about it and kind of.
Yeah, the county approved to make that an entertainment zone so that they can do whatever they want to do. But that'll.
Well, for the casino area.
Yeah.
That I understand.
And hopefully what that will do is increase our percentage or our income from it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if I understood that correctly, is the 350 we're proposing a good number?
I think the number should be 325.
Budget is 350. Okay, all right, so then maybe we have an over budget situation here in revenues for casino funds, 25K.
I mean, the only reason I put it in there based on the trending the last couple of years, we've actually received significantly more than 325, but we've only restricted 325 against the reserve fund. So in essence, it's sitting in deferred revenue for us to spend in the operating funds the way that's what it is. That's why I put it up.
So what you're saying is you have money on the balance sheet that probably would end up here next year?
Right. I think the 350 is a good number for next year. But we can certainly take any recommendations to dial that back if you feel more comfortable that way.
All right, Dick, what say you?
Well, if I hear what he's saying, is that we have some deferred revenues there that we would use in addition to the 325 we would get, and 350 is a good number, I'm okay with the 350. But if we don't have a deferred revenue and it's only what we're going to get, then it probably should be lowered.
No, we don't have, I guess to clarify, Dick, we don't have deferred revenue that we can use for next year. That's already been realized. But I'm just saying, based on history, we get the actual cash receipts that come in. They don't just fix the dollar amount to 325. We get the percentage each month. That's trended over close to $400,000 the last couple of years. So that's why I took it up.
Okay, all right. I trust you.
So then, Dick, your team, you are good with the guesstimate that he did?
Yes, yes.
Okay. We good to go to? I was talking about interest.
I've got a question on the line 672 bad debt. We have proposed of 150K, but yet as you go back through the history, and this year 275, 412, 201, and 254. I guess I'm asking, why are we expecting that down? And again, maybe I don't understand it. But.
Good question, George. We are now we're fully covered 100% of what we have on AR now. We've kind of gone back with the auditors and gotten to that. And sorry, got like a backfire when I end here. I'm hearing my voice, but so really that's what's resulted in the trending the last few years is getting it up to the level that it really needed to be. Now we're caught up, and based on what I see as our typical assessment collection percentage, which is like 2%, that are uncollectible, and Ruth Ann's metrics and analysis that she gives me, that's why we came up with the 150 as being adequate for next year.
And just to solidify that and everything, since we were a part of it, we were behind, like Steve mentioned. The auditors, the several years that I did this, questioned that we weren't funded to where they wanted us to be. So the reason, right, Steve did it perfectly. It was hard to catch up, like we do a lot of stuff here, and even in other departments, we had to catch up. And now we're there, and then it was only the 150. But we'll evaluate it on the audit. Steve constantly monitors it. So That's it.
Okay. So touch on some other lines. Interest income, like I mentioned, came down based on the market. 95% of that goes to the reserve funds anyways, because that's where our cash is. This is kind of the revenue placeholder in general admin. Then we transfer it out in the reserve contribution number that you see the transfer out. Miscellaneous, that's primarily co-op shares from Chop Tank. We get money in, and some sale of old assets, things like that. So you can see the big number that we had in there this year was the PPP, but that's back down to what the level's been in 21, what we budgeted approximately. You can see the payroll costs. I have 0. We had a number that we put in there at a high level, the catch-all for benefit increase last year. That's why that $40,000 is in there from last year, in case somebody had that question. And then accounting fees, we just put that out for bid. Obviously, we kept that. We probably have a little bit of favorability, a couple $1,000 based on the RFP bid that came through from TGM. Legal fees, we kept in there at 150, which is equivalent to the 21 budget. Contract services, I think we talked about the the maintenance support of North Star. That's where that's all kept at. So that's primarily that number is the IT contract services. And you can see that in the breakdown detail. And then bad debts, of course, we just touched on. Insurance, the other big number that went up that we talked about this morning, went up, the 10% is what we're estimating. Property's going up more than 10%. We just took it at a high level, said 10% of the whole $600,000 that the association pays in total for insurance. And depreciation at the bottom, you can see that John alluded to that we actually came down. You can kind of see the breakdown of where that's at. As we would expect with the building of the golf club, you see that go up, which we were expecting, but you see stuff come off the books in furniture and improvements and roads.
So Steve, let me jump in with Steve. First of all, the interest income, this is where the thing with the email we just got on that introductory. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the interest income, we all know that the rates came down and that Steve's numbers reflected. And BNF is a big part of interest income in the banks, and we've talked about that over the years. And I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we went to 2 banks. We went to a bank that had an introductory rate, which was good, and we took advantage of it. Plus, our relationship with the Bank of Ocean City has been outstanding the last several years since I've been here. And we've actually, I know you all check it, we've gotten some favorable rates there. With that said, and the fact that I know BNF has signed us at least 2 banks, we've said that. We do get some emails where somebody might find an introductory rate with some bank that I'm not totally sure if I heard of it or anything. But I'm not going to go bank hopping for introductory rates. I don't think Steve, I don't know if he's nodding or not, that's not what we want to do. Steve will send it to BNF to get guidance from all of you, but we're using 2 banks. Bank of Ocean City in the last several years has been an outstanding partner, business partner. But this whole thing with introductory rates, right? And I'm not going to go bank hopping for 1% or 2 that's short term or whatever. So Steve will send you some of the stuff that we received, but just want to put that out there now, and maybe you all want to give me some guidance and or Steve on that. I'm not going to go bank hopping unless I really believe something.
Yeah. So I mean, and I've told John this, that, a lot of those promotional rates, they'll be better and they look appealing, but then all of a sudden when that promotion runs out, then they go to like 0.00001 and try to get their money back. And then you got to, it's cumbersome to take it back out, find where you want to, I guess, bank hop for John's terms, so it's just a little bit of a history there.
Dick, what say you and your team?
There's also something about having a good bank relationship. Although we're not an organization that is heavily into credit lines and things like that, but obviously the PPP was an important relationship for us with the bank to do what we had to do and so forth. So that's a positive thing. I agree myself that short-term hopping doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay, and I just want to reiterate, and I saw, and Doug jump in, the CFO, but I believe we have an outstanding business relationship with Bank of Ocean City and the number 2 bank, which is a regional bank or national. I mean, I'm fine with that too. Certainly, this should be part of a review, which BNF does every year. Doug, you good? I mean, from a CFO standpoint, treasurer?
Yeah, John, I think you said it correctly. We've got a good relationship with the Bank of Ocean City. Union Bank has, even though we got promotional rates, it's a little bit down right now, but that's across the board. I don't see any benefit, as you mentioned, in bank hopping at this point for a quarter of a percentage point for the amount of money we have, saved in there. It's not worth it. Probably do more damage than good. So listening to you, I would certainly agree with keeping the current incumbents.
Thank you, Doug. Okay. Can I just say one other thing?
Sure.
Okay, so let's just go back to the allowance for doubtful accounts, which you all had an excellent question on, and Steve nailed it with the answer. I'm just using that as an example. That's it, no more, no less. Whether it's other departments, some amenities that we have seen that a lot of times, whether it's maintenance or something else that I'm not going to use any other pronoun or anything. I'm certainly not going to point anywhere. But when we don't do something in the past and it builds up over 3, 4, 5 years, then you got to catch up. Okay. My word this year, my team will tell you, and you've heard it, balance. We're trying to balance everything here. This is a key fact on, when you look at an assessment, sure, there's options and there's things we can do with the assessment depending on where we want to go, that we just don't fund certain things or whatever. But sooner or later, you pay the piper. The allowance for doubtful accounts, especially with everything going on, we are right-sized, we are balanced. And hopefully we have favorability down the road on that. But that's not the only account that I've seen over the 2 years I've been in here. And credit to this board and the other board, any boards that I've dealt with since I've been in here, I believe they're constructive and I believe they understand that, as well as BNF. And we're still doing it. And you can see we have favorability each year with the budget. And the budget really hasn't gone up that much. But there's a lot we're doing. And how do we do that? We do that with efficiencies, right? Efficiencies, reallocation. But there's a lot of different ways of doing this thing. And we're going to obviously have to, we're going to have to look at that, especially over the next couple of weeks. That's all I got on that. But you're going to hear that more as we get into other departments from there. And Steve.
Okay.
Anything else?
Steve?
No, I mean, I think I hit on all the major variances there for admin, if there's no more questions there.
You got to do general manager?
So I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going against what I said earlier because I totally forgot. We have some people from the public here online. I don't know who they are, but I see a few here. And I indicated that I would throw out for questions after each section. Who's ever online, if you would like, raise a hand or speak up if you have a comment or a question that you'd like to make at this point in time. And again, I apologize if I failed to bring this up earlier.
Payroll cost went up that much, even though I don't get the net went up that much. That's just Michelle. Sure. Wow.
So if I'm not hearing any comments or questions, then we can continue to move on.
Okay. So next one is tab 3, General Manager's Office. John O'Connor, what do you think of these new tabs after 50 years?
John's taking a nap.
Did John hear me?
John, do you hear that?
John O'Connor.
We on PR, Mark.
No, we gotta do general manager's office.
So John's on tab 3.
All right, that's right, fine, all right. All right, so Steve's telling me I have to do this one. So he's laughing at, all right, so that's tab number 3, the general manager's office. I guess there's 2 employees in there, correct?
Right.
2 employees, again, if you shoot down to the bottom number first, you see there's around there's a $7,000 increase, 3% kind of gets you there. You look at the salaries, the payroll costs. Now, obviously, the GM waived the medical, but when you have 401k or whatever, and Steve's telling me he's split. I don't know if it's true or not, but basically that's it. To be honest with you, it's pretty straightforward outside of the 3% in the increase, and then obviously there's 2 employees in there, so there is some payroll cost increase as well as the salary. Everything else pretty much the same. Any questions?
It looks like contract services jumps up and down over the years. So maybe there's a lot of different stuff going on there. It looks like we spent $120 through September, and we're forecasting and projecting for the budget for 15 grand. Don't know what that is. I guess I see it here. Okay, ADP, HR, safety consultant, and other. Okay.
Okay. So Stephen, apologies, not Steve, Dick. You were questioning the contract services?
Yeah. Is it year-end? Is it back-end loaded? Is that what it is?
Well,
So, go ahead.
yeah, so for 20, the big number there is the compensation study, Dick, $50,000. So that's kind of a one-off.
Right.
We haven't done anything this year with it. Next year, DMA Light is probably going to have to hit that 15,000. There's also, if you look at the detail, the number that's showing up there is still ADP HR benefits module, which we still need to do. And like I told you, with Kathy's workload, we weren't able to implement it this year because of the 401k implementation and COVID and all that good stuff. So we need to have that 15,000 in there, but we might not spend any of that money this year.
Or we may, because I got to be honest with you, there's a lot of changes here. I possibly will go outside to some services to assist us with it. So it's not a lot of money. Like you said, the DMA, what we call DMA Light, is in there. The rest is small, but we may need it. And he
Hey,
explained.
John, does that include the current Siegel contract that we haven't paid yet, or have we paid that?
I haven't seen it here.
So I haven't seen a bill on that. I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen it. I just asked Steve. He hasn't seen it. So I'm going to say no, it doesn't include it for this year yet. And I don't know if he put it in the form.
I think we
I don't believe he
we had
has.
to make a payment up front, John. And I guess my question is, does it go in here or does it go somewhere else on the books?
So, I mean, that's part of it. That could be said that, I mean, the forecast I just kept flat to the budget. Arguably, that could probably be lower at $5,000. So yeah, it should go here.
Sorry, Steve, I was having a side conversation. What was that?
So yeah, I would charge it here. I haven't seen the 5,000 yet. That'll contribute to the $15,000 forecast that I have in there. Arguably, that might be a little high, $15,000.
But I might be wrong, but I thought we had to send a payment already on this of several $1,000s. So you might want to check that.
I'll check with Michelle when we go out. I know what you're talking about. This is where it would go.
Okay.
And that was the total overall 5,000? 4,500 or something?
I think it was closer to 57, John.
Okay. I will check with Michelle, but this is where, and if it is somewhere else, we'll reclass it. I will check. Put that down, please. Okay. Anything else? I have, it's pretty much it for me on this. That's it, General Manager and Michelle.
Okay, any more questions from anybody on this department? So we're good to go.
Okay, great. As you mentioned, Dick, and thank you very much. As you mentioned, next, Public Relations and Marketing, Julie Malinowski is here. I know Josh is online, and I know Josh is doing a lot of work with this, with the video, whatever, and I believe that Julie is going to take us through it, and I'm sure Josh is there also. Julie, all you.
Okay. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, be sure to speak up.
Okay.
Speak as loud as you can, or get closer to your mic.
You want to sit here? And I'll move?
That would be better.
Okay, she'll sit here and I'm going to move.
Good idea.
Okay. Good morning. Is that better?
That's great.
Okay. Super.
Perfect.
So, like every other department, we have rising payroll costs, but I'll start with revenue. And actually, the marketing and PR department wasn't impacted by COVID the way I thought we might be. Our advertising for the newsletter, which is our main source of revenue, has been really strong. We've shown consistent growth with that. So that's good news. One change under revenue is the shifting of farmers market revenue to the Recreation and Parks Department. This is something that's really primarily sort of administrative. It just kind of made more sense for that to fall under their umbrella, since the farmers market is in Whitehorse Park, which falls under the guidance of the Recreation and Parks Department anyway. I think it will be easier for the farmers market vendors to make payments directly at the community centers, since the community center is open on the weekends. It just kind of cleans up some of the bookkeeping. Of course, the marketing department will still, offer marketing support as we always have done for the market. But that's one change. That's why that miscellaneous, it has fallen under the miscellaneous line in the marketing budget, so that's why that number is changing for next year. Another change is the shifting of $3,500 in promotion expenses, also from the Recreation Department to the Marketing Department. Again, this just kind of cleans that up a little bit. This was money that when we would do advertising, anytime it related to the Recreation and Parks Department, we were charging it back to this account. So it just makes sense to shift it over to marketing anyway, since we were really the ones spending the money. It's very similar to what happened with golf last year, or for the current fiscal year, which we're continuing for the next fiscal year. There was $25,000 in marketing for the golf course that was shifted over to the Marketing Department. And this is primarily for marketing expenditures related to some TV segments, Hooked on OC and Endless Golf. I think maybe the golf app. So these are marketing expenditures that are still definitely under the direction of the golf amenity, just like really any of our advertising. We definitely do that with, the recommendations of our different amenities. So it makes sense for those costs, I think, to be realized in the Marketing Department. A couple other notable expenses. We're continuing some Comcast targeted internet advertising. That's something specifically for weddings and banquets. So we started that this year. We're in the middle of that campaign right now, and it targets some areas like DC, Baltimore, like Harrisburg, Lancaster, York in Pennsylvania. That was at the specific request of the Matterhorn company. So far the initial results are good, but we're still in the middle of that campaign. So we'll see what the final results for that are. But we've put that in the budget again for next year. Another addition is And this is all under promotion and marketing. Another addition is $2,500 for targeted ads for banquets, and that's through Google. And again, that's a request that the Matterhorn company's made. So we're going to try that this year and see how it goes. I think, I think the Matterhorn companies has been really good when we're working with marketing banquets and weddings. I think they've been very good at identifying expenditures that maybe aren't necessary. So we've cut out some print advertising that they said, they're not realizing anything from that. And so we're trying a couple other things to reach those target markets for them. I think the one other kind of big difference is related to our printing and postage costs for our 6 publications. So that's 2 activity guides for the Recreation Parks Department and our 4 quarterly newsletters. For the current year's budget, last year, for the first time, we issued an RFP to try to kind of negotiate a better price for our printing and mailing costs. And because that was the first time we had done that, we sort of split the postage and printing costs down the middle, because the RFP, I believe, didn't really break those costs down. We just kind of had a total number, so we split it in half. For next year's budget, we kind of have a more accurate idea of what the specific printing and postage costs are. So that's why those numbers look a little bit different for next year. So we had a little bit of increase in, printing costs and postage costs. And those tend to fluctuate a little bit. We've had to, sometimes we might have to increase the number of pages for a newsletter. And that is in large part due to the increased advertising. So that's a good problem to have. So those numbers can change a little bit, but we've used estimates that are a little bit on the higher side. So it's certainly likely that those numbers could come in a little bit lower. Those are kind of the highlights. Does anyone have any specific questions about anything?
Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Hi, Julie. This is Brian. On the grants, you're confident you're going to land another 10K grant for next year?
We've been encouraged by the county to apply for that. So we feel pretty confident about that.
Say yes. Say
John said to say yes.
Okay.
We are confident about that.
All right. Good, John. Great. My other question is on the newsletter expense and postage. I know there was a aborted effort to stop sending the newsletters several years ago, and it was decided to keep doing it. It's a lot of money, and rather than just cut it off, any interest in trying to do some kind of opt-in by members who still want to get the letter rather than just sending it out to everybody?
I mean, I think that's a great question, and definitely it's come up. I mean, I know our department feels very strongly. We don't have very many opportunities where every resident and property owner in Ocean Pines gets a piece of mail, and this is one of the very limited opportunities that we have to do that. Actually, I think we're trending, and if these trends continue, I mean, we're about breaking even on our newsletter costs. I know for the fall issue, for example, we brought in about $14,000 in advertising revenue.
Nice.
So when you factor in the postage cost and the printing cost and the graphic design work, which we contract out, that still put us under what our advertising revenue was. So okay. I think, again, if our current revenue trends continue, best case or worst case scenario, we're breaking even. Maybe we're spending $1,000 or $2,000 maybe per issue. But like I said, in the fall, we actually wound up making a little bit of money.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right, thanks. Just wanted to bring that up as an item. Thank you. That's all.
Does that mean it's lunchtime?
Just want to check. Just want to get food. Okay, so Julie, thank you very much. And Julie, thank you very much.
Hey, Julie.
We have a question.
So Julie, a couple things. Number one, you'd mentioned that the advertising for banquets for the yacht club or for the Matterhorn company are included in this number. is all of the advertising that we're doing for the Matador Company included in this promotional dollars, or do they do some of that themselves?
I'm not aware of anything they do on their own, so yes, pretty much all of the
All right,
promotional
so
costs are
we've
funded.
incurred all the expenses for advertising and promotion of the Matador Companies. That would include the yacht club, beach club, clubhouse, venues at Ocean Pines, banquets and that kind of stuff, correct?
Correct. Yes.
All right, and then as a follow-up, are all the marketing expenses for Ocean Pines included in this budget, or are there other departments that have their own sort of smaller budget that deals with marketing promotion of their specific departments?
Okay. I think
Yeah, so Doug, and I'm just jumping in, first of all, on the Matador, Julie's right. The Matador, we do the advertising. I have an agreement with Ralph when we signed the contract. We're not committed to a specific amount, but so far it's worked out terrific between all of us. Josh and Julie doing the work with Ralph and Matt, or, Ralph. So that's the answer there. It would be here. As far as the marketing, we centralized all the marketing here. The differences in golf, the marketing for golf that has to deal with, what's the name of that?
Packaging.
What's it called? It's called something. So the
golf getaway.
the other lady, Pam's package, all that stuff is in golf, and John will explain that. I think the number's around $40,000. So golf gets hit for marketing unlike anybody else.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anything else for Julie and Josh? Okay, thank you very much. Good job, team there.
Thank you,
Thank
Julie.
you, Julie.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, so I guess the next item on the agenda will be after lunch, and that will be golf, which is scheduled for 12:30, quarter to 12 right now. And then other than review and action items, that's it for the day.
Good. Okay, so I just went to check is the food over there yet? I know Michelle's not here. I went to check.
Food just came in, yes.
Okay, yeah, so so perfect timing. Dick, I guess we'll start if your lunch is there, it's there. You want to reconvene at the 12:30? I'll make sure John's here and Justin.
Let's plan on 12:30.
Okay, great.
All right, so everybody,
I guess to touch on one other
we can go have something to eat. Thank you. All right, we're ready to rock and roll. And putt and drive.
Oh, no, I'm all right, so next on the agenda and last for today is golf operations, which includes obviously the golf shop and then maintenance. John brought his number 2 as number 1, who I believe will be doing the maintenance. But before we go in there, just wanted to talk a couple things about golf, where we are, what we've seen, and what I've seen over the years since I've been doing this, which is probably around 8-10 years. So it's been my experience, and I'm sure John O'Connor and others, that in the past, and as recent as probably 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was, where, if we have a shortfall in the budget or whatever, well, let's take it out of golf. And I've seen that more than once. And I certainly saw it, the budget, when I first came in here, where 35, 40,000 maintenance was taken out. And I'm being honest, I define that as cutting costs at any cost. And that's not the way to go here. Obviously, I'm just one say, and the board and BNF, that's fine. But I'm just going to let you know. We have achieved the word, and many of my direct reports will tell you for this year, the word is balance. And I believe we have found it, or we're close to it with golf. It's a balance. How much do we want to spend on something, and where do we want to get this return, right? I mean, I hope everybody understands and agrees with me, where, I could put not enough cost in there, and maybe I think I saved 30,000, but then I lost 60,000, 70,000 in revenue because nobody wants to play the course. or I could put too much in there and I can never make a profit. And we're just trying to break even everywhere. So this balance needs to be achieved. And obviously that comes with experience. And I think we have it. I talked to you about the allowance for doubtful accounts. You saw the numbers go up and then now it's kind of coming down. Well, you know, Steve and I, we had to catch up. It's the same thing with golf. With golf, with the maintenance, with what we saw with the greens. And again, since I've been in here, since I've been doing the BNF, when I was the CFO, nobody's pointing at anybody. We're just pointing out root causes and trying to fix it. And trying to get a balance on how much money we put in and what we get back and what we want to spend, right? Ralph talked to you and all of us yesterday about food, an amenity, you know, a certain type of food, a certain type of process where it would be less, but, you know, he's giving better service. And I'm sorry, did somebody say anything? Okay, so it's the same thing with golf and everything else. I believe in the 8-10 years I've been doing this, that we're the closest to it, the balance. Because and what we're also doing, just like the allowance account, is trying to catch up for money, for work, for investments that weren't done for several years. And it cost us, it really did. The course, and credit to the board, I gotta make sure I said that. Credit to BNF, teams, whole team, not just golf, because this is going on not just in golf. So I'm asking this BNF team, as we go through this, and obviously we're gonna be looking for ways to cover money. I spoke to you about that this morning. I think there's other ways, and I'm just asking everybody, don't cut costs just for cutting costs. There's ways of doing it, okay? He being John, they have some ideas to try to generate more revenue. Obviously with that clubhouse, thank you to the board and everybody else and the good people of Ocean Pines, where you invested money and we're gonna make more money on it. And that building's gonna cost us less than maybe if we had repaired it, all right? And I'm not gonna get into that, but the board certainly made the right decision. We all did. So with that said, you know, I'm gonna hand over to John, to Justin, and we're going to go from there. But the numbers are balanced. We had a pandemic like everything else that, you know, the outside play, we don't know what would happen in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, where a lot of play comes down. But, you know, I've gone through the numbers with John. He has a really good plan. He's going to go through it with you, Justin, for the maintenance. Those greens, you know, anywhere I've been, my boss has always asked me what keeps me up at night. Well, those greens kept me up at night. But I believe we got the root cause. You all know about that. There's a cost to it, but there's another cost we save on because then we're not going back and trying to repair it. Hopefully we got it because we're trying to catch up on something that's happened and developed over 7 years. So with that, I'm going to now hand it off to the two experts on that to talk to you about it.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Welcome, John.
Okay, I guess we'll start with revenue. You can see kind of based off of last year, we're projecting 35,000 more, and primarily it's greens fees, or I guess, you know, player fees, greens fees, card fees, just a $5,000 increase over what we budgeted last year, or I guess the current year for merchandise sales. I think being in a new clubhouse, that's definitely going to help it. We've already seen some more traffic, not just from golfers coming in, but others in the neighborhood and the association that come in and start looking at it and have been buying things. So we see that only going up. And then the increase in the greens fees and card fees wasn't necessarily from increased rounds of golf, but really we've trying to raise the fees $5 for our resident rates during the season, and then anywhere from $5 to $10 for our public rates based on time of year and how busy we've been. And that's how we came up with $30,000 for the golf fees and then the $5,000 for the merchandise. Yeah, anything to add on that? Did I forget anything? Not knowing, obviously a lot of what we have coming up, it depends on COVID and what's happening in vaccines, but I think we've got a pretty good plan going forward. I think membership's probably the dollars are gonna be about the same. We're $13,000 this year, less than what we had projected, which I think is pretty good given the pandemic and uncertainty with everything. So we feel good about that number as well. Moving down towards expenses, payroll, about $15,000 more. We've got minimum wage increase. I think that accounted for $10,000 or $11,000 right there, and then some other slight increases. And the other expenses that we have are really just what we've had budgeted for this current year. I think those numbers are pretty solid. We've got one of our other biggest numbers. I know Julie talked about golf marketing and the print and media, and then what we cover here is destination marketing and golf packages. So it's not all golf packages, although that's probably a bulk of it. But we do a lot of marketing with Golf Getaway, which is a big co-op marketing company, and it goes all the way up to New York and Canada, out west to Pittsburgh. We get Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut. So that's where we get a lot of our play in the summertime from. So they're not here on golf packages, but they're here vacationing, and that's one of our big target markets. And that's what I have right now. Anybody have any questions before we have Justin talk about maintenance?
Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, John, real quick, I'm looking at the revenue number on merchandise. And are you comfortable with that number? Because it kind of looks like it's a little bit maybe optimistic based on not only the previous couple of years in history, but I mean, is there anything you're going to do different that would drive that number to what you feel is a comfortable number of the revenue that you generated?
Well, I feel comfortable with that. I mean, it's optimistic. I'd rather be optimistic than pessimistic about it. But I think given the new clubhouse, we're starting to see more people from outside play, not just residents, but public and coming down. I think it's a pretty good number. I think it's achievable. We had a hard time selling things at our old place. It was kind of a rundown golf shop, and it smelled bad, so people weren't really coming in and browsing and taking a look at things. So I feel comfortable with that. I think.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
George?
John, the golf simulator, are we getting any revenue from that, or is that in the miscellaneous, or is that?
Well, we have. We get merchandise and some miscellaneous stuff there. Now we haven't opened it up to the public because of COVID and controlling the room and everything, but we've been able to use the launch monitor to fit for golf club sales. I've done, I think, 6 fittings already where we've been able to sell drivers, sets of irons, and things like that. So even with the pandemic and the limited use of it, we've already been able to realize some revenue with that. And I think that's just going to go up now that we're actually in the building. Plus, I can take the launch monitor out to the driving range. So, I see just a potential big upside to that.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment that the overall revenue projection for 2022 seems pretty aggressive. I have all the confidence in you guys, and I think the promises there to really make that place hop. And I'm confident you guys will do it. It just seems like it's pretty aggressive on the proposed revenue over what's forecast to end for this year, and then against the budget for last year. So
and I understand that. One thing, Brian, I think if you take a look at, I hate to say the word pandemic, but it really caused a lot. If you look at May and June, May and June, we lost over 3,500 rounds, which is more than $100,000 in revenue there.
Wow.
If you add that into our forecast, now we don't know what April is going to be like, but we're pretty much right on that, I think.
Yeah.
So I agree it's aggressive, especially not knowing what's going to happen. But I think it is achievable.
Yeah. Well, I know we talked about it last year. It's so great to have the new clubhouse, and I think it is an attraction now. And I have to say I didn't golf much this year, unfortunately, but I hope to contribute to your revenue in the coming year.
I hope you do too.
All right, thanks, guys.
So just as a note, it's a 10% increase over the forecast. So,
Right.
and given the play that we lost early in the season, I'll be back here. I think that seems reasonable to me, not unreasonable. George. Okay. Doug.
Hey, John, along those same lines, if you look under promotion, under line 697, you know, is 35K enough? Looking at, the actuals from previous years and knowing that you're, pushing for, more play, is that going to be enough to cover what you think you're going to need for promotion?
I think in combination with what the marketing department has, I think they've got 25 or 30 on theirs. Combined, I think it'll achieve what we're looking for.
Okay.
So yesterday, I'm going to bring up your suggestion yesterday, Brian. I think it's a good time to do it today. Brian was identifying a new revenue source for you, John. If there's a lot of banquets going on for golf-related activities, golf outings and things, and Matt Ord is supplying the food and so forth and the booze, they're getting the revenue for that. And you and mainly you, I guess, are the ones that are selling these things. Should there be some kind of selling commission that comes back to the golf operations for that activity? I know Matt Ort gets 5% bonus on banquets, I guess, that they sell. Should there be something similar coming back to the golf course? And Brian, I don't think you were suggesting that comes out of Matt Ort's pocket. I think you were maybe suggesting that was a internal transfer, or were you suggesting Matt Ort should be giving some money back?
No, I wasn't trying to suggest that penalize Ort for it, but since John's generating the business that Ort is then benefiting from, so I just felt like the golf operations should earn a little cut of the revenue. However, it's worked out. That was my just a fairness factor.
So it's a reallocation internally of
yeah, and maybe it's not that much that it's even worth considering, but it was just an idea I had to be fair to golf ops budget, and maybe encourage John to go out and generate even more golf banquet revenue.
Hey, Dick. Look, Brian, we are under contract with Matt Ort for the food and beverage operations, and we can't change that contract at this point. And I think in reality, the amount of money we're talking, it comes back to us anyway through the food and beverage operation. So
sure,
John does, the golf outings will generate a lot of banquets this year, but it's like I said, we're under contract, so we're not. I don't think that's a feasible thing.
Okay, very good. Maybe something to consider for the future.
Hey, we'll take any you give us.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John, you really include the tournaments and stuff.
Yeah.
It's all.
Colette has a question.
That's all in green. Can't hear Colette. Yeah. Hey, Colette, I can't hear you. Your microphone's muted, Colette.
Oh, sorry about that, John. I was just saying that maybe this year it would make sense to track the banquet revenue that comes from your department, work that you guys generate for the banquet, even though we're not making the allocation, so that next we would know what kind of revenue might be able to get allocated to your department as opposed to our general fund. And the reason being is that you have taken a hit from the community, always being criticized for having to be subsidized by the non-golfing community. And I think, you know, whatever revenue you deserve to get, you ought to get. That's, you know, just a thought, you know, for future planning.
Yeah, we can absolutely track all that. And I know John Viola wanted to say something here.
So first of all, look, I appreciate this, and here's how this works, and here's how Ralph and I spoke about this last year, and Ralph touched on it yesterday, kind of gave the answer on what we've looked at with this building, because I have gotten this question before. I've gotten it from Tom Stouse and everything. When Ralph and Ralph gave you the answer yesterday, kind of in emphasis, is this: if he has weddings there in the community center, his cost, his food is all generated from the yacht club. That revenue that's in that community center for the wedding will go to the yacht club. Ralph knows when he has these tournaments, or Lewis working with John, that they generate income in the sense of the banquet or the lunches, which you're all talking about. That would stay in the grill. To me, the grill, part of it is golf. You know, we can do something, which I believe is the right thing, and say this is part of golf just like any other golf course, but this part of the grill is really for the community. And Ralph and I can work something up on that, you know, with Lewis and Steve. Steve's the one that'll probably do it after I look at it. But that's what I was thinking from the beginning. And that's kind of what Brian's saying. And again, it wouldn't hurt Ralph, and Ralph knows that. It would be like an allocation when we say, okay, what did golf generate? And that would be something between Ralph and Lewis, Steve and me, that we can get that allocation with support, which is basically what you're all saying. So that is what we planned. It sounds like that's what you're recommending. You know, each one's going to feed off the other. Is that good, Brian?
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Hey, Dick.
Okay.
Hey, John, let me just add one thing to that. You know, we got the spreadsheet from Ralph the other day on the weddings they have booked for this year, and, you know, what they have booked at the country club. I got to believe on that same spreadsheet, if he books an outing, he's going to have that listed as a golf outing. So it doesn't look like there has to be anything differently done, as if Ralph just records those golf outings on the spreadsheet he's already provided to us as they get scheduled. The information will be right there. It'll be easy to break out.
Okay. So, look, we'll take care of it. Let's see how this evolves. I just want to, I'm a little far away, so I can't hear if somebody's talking. I want to answer where you all said about it, how John's numbers or numbers for golf were higher than the forecast, and you are right. John pointed out, especially those 6 weeks, we lost May, we lost part of June. That's a COVID adjustment. So when you look at the COVID adjustment that I talked to you about earlier, that's where you'll see where John, Justin, Steve, and me, that's where that adjustment is for COVID if it happens again. We're hoping that it doesn't. So, you know, this was if there is no COVID budget, which is what everybody was supposed to do. So obviously the other side, when we, you know, look at the COVID adjustment again, you'll see in the number in there, and I read it off to you this morning. The same thing with the pro shop, Doug, and you're right, it's aggressive. But, you know, I was down there last night with John going through numbers and a few other things, and I walked through that pro shop. He'll tell you, I always do. I'm flipping through the shirts, I'm flipping through the pullovers. There's some really neat stuff in there. There really is. And, you know, that's when John was telling me Saturday, and John, why don't you say it? What did you generate Saturday?
Yeah, we had 110 rounds of golf on Saturday, which is pretty nice. And, you know, you got people rolling in, purchasing things. So even in the wintertime, that's just a huge bonus for us.
So, you know, we don't want to sandbag it. This is what we truly believe. You'll see in the COVID adjustment, you know, we'll discuss that a little more later on in the week. The place is packed. I want John to say it. The number of rounds, John.
Yeah, no, it's been good. I was trying to figure out, just based on what we've done this year through today, we've So we're through today, we're 22,414 rounds. Last year, we did 24,155. And if we just had the 3,500 rounds that we lost in May and June, you know, we're already up over what we had last year and the year before. So it shows a great trend in golf, and things are definitely going in the right direction here. Hopefully a little bit of help from Mother Nature and getting rid of COVID here with the vaccine. You know, we're definitely going in the right direction. Things are looking good for golf.
So just on the merchandise comment again, I think that with the simulator working and people using it, we're obviously going to sell more clubs, right? We're going to fit.
I believe so, yes.
So that'll also help with the, you know, justify some of the increase going on there. Hopefully. Brian?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to take the opportunity to encourage everyone to, from a marketing standpoint, to call it the Clubhouse Grill and the Ocean Pines Golf Clubhouse. I still see references to the Turn Grill and to the Country Club. I know old habits die hard, but from a marketing standpoint, I think it's important that everybody use the new names, and it'll help promote it. Thank you.
Okay, I know it wasn't me. It must have been Larry that used Turner's Grill, right?
Country Club.
Country
No,
Club, whatever.
I'm not sure who it was. I might have seen it on paper too. I don't know if it was
They're telling me here it wasn't me, it was Larry.
mentioned that way. Just a pet peeve I have. Don't
right.
think too much about it.
Okay. I just want to go in again before this.
Okay.
Okay, so the second part, and it is a big number, is the maintenance. I just wanted to, again, just talk a little bit. First of all, thank you all the feedback and everything on there. So big part of golf is maintenance. There's no question about it. I believe me, I've learned about it. It's big, and it's not as easy. It's not just going out there mowing lawns or fertilizer or whatever. There's so much involved. And, you know, we have these greens. They're again, I'm not an expert in golf, but these are the greens, really good greens for golf. Yeah, John?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But, you know, with this type of green, you know, we're learning. There's a different way to maintain it. And, you know, we're learning, and everybody's learning. And we've done a lot of things. We've changed a lot, and we believe we're addressing that black stuff that you see, that I see, that drives me, you know, but it's a process. It's a process. You all heard about the Ninja Tines, right? The Ninja Tines. We need to continue doing that. Different type of fertilizer, but, you know, again, the expert will tell you about it. But they also needed the right equipment. When I first came to this job and I went down there, the equipment was like unbelievably bad. And, you know, Matt the mechanic, I mean, like, I can go on, we team all over the place, public works everywhere, Aquatics. I mean, the amount of work he was putting in on this equipment and everything, and the equipment wasn't working. You couldn't cut the rough right. The course was always wet because of the drainage. We figured out the drainage. I mean, Andre was a wealth of knowledge on the drainage. Everybody was. We fixed that. You all know about the pipes, what we did, how we did that, right back in January, February. The course gets drier quicker. Then you're able to mow the rough. Now we have, thank you to the board and Ocean Pines and everybody else, we have the right equipment so that we can cut the rough lower, and, you know, it's not as wet. Better play, and everybody wants to play. I mean, it's frustrating. It's playable. The greens, all right, something happened, and we'll go through this next year and everything, but even this year, we fixed it quicker. Got everybody back out there playing. You know, it's like anything, it's word of mouth. Something happens, it takes a long time to get the people back, right? Whatever happened 10 years ago, 8 years ago, you all picked the date whatever happened to those greens. They're not coming back for a while, even if you fix them. They come back, they try it, they're loving it. The prices we have for the outside play, for the package play, are extremely competitive, if not favorable to the golfers. They know they're coming, and then they spend money in the clubhouse. They spend money on the cart lady or whatever. Ralph knows that. And they're giving great service. So, right, each side is helping. It's a winning combination. those patios, that's all I'm going to say on it. Those patios, those sales, by the way, it didn't cost us anything. I think people are enjoying them, and they're going to come more. And, you know, the NFL ticket, the food there, give it time. We're excited about it, as well as racket sports, aquatics, everything else that we're talking to. So, all right. So with that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about maintenance. Justin will certainly talk to you in more detail. I already made my plea, or whatever you want to term it, to leave this balance. Don't cut. All right. So with that, Justin, tell them why, Justin.
All right. Yeah, hello. I'm very excited this year. It'll obviously be my first year running this budget, so we didn't make a whole lot of major changes to it, but there are a few line items that we made some adjustments to going forward this year. So really, the chemicals and fertilizer, we added a little bit of money to this year. I have been doing soil testing, and we're getting reports back, so I'm just trying to make sure we get the right amendments out that we need on the golf course, so we have a healthier environment out there. So that's a big one. The other thing we added was the contract services for our August aerification on fairways. That's actually contracted out, and that was not in the previous budget. So we wanted to make sure we added that in this year, which is about $10,000 every time we do that. So we wanted to make sure that was addressed in the budget, so we're not behind as well. And then the other big adjustment here that we're seeing is just with the minimum wage increases, the payroll is adjusted a little bit as well. But as far as everything else, we're pretty much running last year's budget other than a couple of those line items for the most part. I don't know if you have any comments about any of the budget items there.
So is your staffing is constant with this year? There's no, I'm not looking at the staffing tab, but there's no increase in staffing, same staff in place now?
Yeah, it is. We have some guys laid off here over winter, but for the most part, we are carrying about 14 guys in season, which I believe we've been doing the last several years there. So no drastic cuts in staffing that we're looking at the moment.
Dick, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've explained the contract services you said for 10,000 for the fairways. Would you tell me again what that's for?
Yeah, that's for the fairway aerification in the August. So that's actually done by an outside company, which gets it done just much quicker than we can do it in-house and saves us a lot of time and labor. So we've kept that in once a year as an outside service that we use, and they knock it out in about 2 days.
All right, fine, thank you.
George?
Hi, Justin. Quick one on the trees. I know last year we took a lot of trees down just to get the air moving around the fairways and, to promote the growth and get the fungus and all that out of it. Are there more trees coming down this year, or has that project been completed?
Yep, absolutely. The GM is on me quite hard about taking a lot of trees down, so we're continuing that process. But yeah, and that will continue probably every off season. There's always going to be areas that we're going to need to address and remove trees, so we will continue doing that work.
Yeah, I think that's an area that'll definitely help out with some of the issues we've had with fairways and the greens and that. Thank you.
Yep.
Tom?
Thank you. We talked to Matt Ort Company yesterday about the grill. When I look at the item number 620 electric, and I looked at golf ops, $12,000 projection, golf maintenance, $23,300, and clubhouse grill, $3,074. That's $38,674 we're paying for electric. I don't want to dispute the totals, but perhaps more allocation ought to go towards the clubhouse grill. And maybe this is not the year to do that. I know that golf ops and maintenance does not use propane. We buried that 1,000-gallon tank, and it's used by the kitchen. But it seems to me that's a heck of a lot of money. It's $3,000 a month for electric. So you may want to take a look at that number and lower the golf ops and maintenance and allocate more towards the grill. That's all I have.
Okay, and Tom, it's a point well taken. I'm sure on the building that, we will look at that. As far as on the maintenance side, Justin will tell you, and I'm gonna let him jump in. He's got the pumps and all that stuff, but on the building itself, you're probably right on the allocation. But tell him about from your end.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly look at that, but I do know maintenance will probably eat a lot of that cost because the pump house for the irrigation system does use a lot of electricity. That's our heavy hitter as far as maintenance is concerned.
Yeah, and Tom, and I just double checked to make sure. I'm pretty sure, and Justin will answer this now. I'm pretty sure he has a separate meter, whereas you heard that the clubhouse is the one. He's got a separate meter.
Yeah, so a lot of that probably is coming from the pump house for the irrigation.
The other thing with the greens, we got I call them push motors, but obviously they're powered. But we just, now that we have the equipment, it'll help them. And, the team in the past that they had to do a lot with a little. It's going to help us with the greens. It'll help with the stress. Having the right equipment and appreciation to BNF, to the board and everybody. And, sorry, in the past, they didn't have this stuff, but these are all reasons why this golf course and why everybody's playing. It's not just, somebody wants to get out there and play golf because, the pandemic. And again, I'm going to say it again, the drainage on that course, Andre had 30 years of experience on it. He knew where everything was. We fixed it. Public Works came in. Andre's team did it. We allocated more resource. It dries up quicker, and it goes on. Then they can mow better and keep the place playable longer or quicker. And it just evolves, and we just need to keep that balance. And it's compliments to everybody. Look, and everybody else that worked on that. Ninja Tines.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of punching. So we're going to be very aggressive, obviously, to manage this thatch layer on the greens.
And then the other thing with the thatch, they got new equipment. They didn't have this stuff before. Again, the maintenance team there didn't have it. Justin has this equipment. Tell them about the thatching, which probably we couldn't do in the past.
Yeah, so we've also picked up some verticut reels for a unit that we already had in the shop, which is going to help us strip and cut some of that thatch right out of the surface of the greens as well. So this is all with the Ninja Tines to remove that thatch, and then we'll be incorporating sand and doing more top dressing over top because we really just need to get that water moving through the profile because the goal is to drive the roots deeper. With all this thatch up top, the roots are not going to go down below that. So you're looking at a very shallow root system that we're trying to correct here.
That's key. And it's going to take time.
Any other questions?
Oh yeah, this is Brian. Just a quick one on the payroll. With the payroll itself being flat, help us understand why the payroll costs, the proposed cost is significantly higher.
Health insurance.
It's the health insurance. Okay, very good. That's all.
George, you have your hand up to take it down?
Okay. So it's a combination, if you do the 30%, but it's a combination, some I don't want to say savings on 401k, but less of a contribution to 401k, which lowered the amount of the payroll, which can turn around in a year or two.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yep, no, good questions. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's from our end. That's what we got.
Oh, thank you. So the net of the two, golf ops and golf operations, is about a break even. And I guess that was the, a little bit, 47,000,
Right, exactly,
almost a break even.
And we're hoping to do better, and we're being honest. We're not coming in here saying that we're gonna under-promise and over-deliver.
Yeah. To me, that feels like a good place to be.
I think John O'Connor had a question up there.
John?
No, John said it, but the mic was off, and it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, but I got other speakers up there. All right.
They made me mute my mic, John.
John, tell me, oh, he put it on mute already. John, tell me about the new tabs. You like them?
Oh, yeah, color-coded, very nice. They're color-coded, they're in sequence, and the numbers are all in sequence, very good.
Ruth Ann Myers and who else, Julie? And Steve. All right, anything else? Steve, he wants credit on that too. He's gonna tell you that I didn't want to do it. I said John O'Connor will have problems with it, but I guess not. All right, we good?
Yeah,
Dick, talk to me.
Yeah, so Josh, is anybody in the public on?
I see
I don't believe
Styles.
so.
What about TS?
Okay. All right, so any final comments or questions? I
Okay,
think we're good. Thank you, John, and appreciate it, you and your team.
John and Justin
Thank you.
and everybody
you,
else
guys.
down there.
And I think that closes out the day.
That does, outside of, I think you have some type of a review. I know I asked you, Dick, before lunch, we'll do the same format with the teams and everything tomorrow. Anything you or your team want us to change on our end, just let me know now.
Any suggestions there, comments, changes? No, I think we like what's happening so far. As far as review and action plans, we'll hit that in the morning when we have a
Okay.
chance to look at the notes from today and just
Okay.
better prepared to do that.
Okay, Steve, we might have some changes for Friday, but do you have any changes for tomorrow to send them or anything?
I do have a capital sheet that's got some small revisions in it, so I can send it out tonight so that you have it for tomorrow.
So
You also want hard copies to be sent over to Assateague, Dick?
Yeah, that'd be great. Steve, you say you have some changes coming out today? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's basically the capital sheet, little bit of deviation there. So I'll send these over so they're available for you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, good. Send them over, and then if you could email them out, that's great. Thank you.
And when we do the capital, a lot of the capital have already been vetted with BNF. How come we're going down here?
Yeah, I agree, John. I think.
Right, and then, but we'll go through it, and the same thing with the initiatives. So we do have initiatives, and then obviously, okay, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we've done a really good job as far as reviewing capital as we go this year.
Right.
So I think that everyone has a good understanding as to what's there, and so we got a good start to that.
Great. Yep, there'll be no surprises. Good. Okay, if Dick
All right,
says
good night.
goodbye.
Good one.
Thank you. Goodbye
Thank you,
from here.
everybody. See you tomorrow.